Ay, ay. Okay, so actually, I'm gonna go real for a sec. Okay, doesn't show anybody watching the stream just yet, but for those of you who will be watching the archive, because there are weird people on the internet who watch weird things like, an aging Nancy boy past his prime doing simple things like making cat food for his cats, one of whom is an annoying little weenus. But he's cute. But he's cute and fluffy, and we love him to bitch anyway. Yeah, you're annoying, aren't you? Yes, you are. Don't don't be fooled. He's actually really annoying. Um, there have been times I've thought to myself, why are you in my life right now? Just because he's just... And he means well. He means well. He's not like, like a malicious annoying. He's a very, very... he's a very affectionate annoying. He's annoying in that he's always begging for love and snuggles and cuddles and pettings. And sometimes, even if he is indeed intending to be helpful with his persistent begging for attention in an affectionate way, if he does indeed mean well sometimes I'm just not in the mood. I am not in the mood, and yet he persists. And it's very cute, but sometimes can be very annoying. But yes, I'm making cat food right now in front of all of one person apparently on the stream. And as best to my knowledge, yes, chat is still in slow mode, meaning that individual people or something, or maybe is it by individual people or just in general that it's 30 seconds between being able to send out messages over the chat channel on this thing. Oh, now I've got two people. Feel free to say hello or whatever. As far as the lighting on this goes, I'm looking for something better than Streamlabs, because, but right now Streamlabs is the one that I know works with my phone, because for some reason the Streamlabs app does not recognize that I have a front-facing flash on my phone. And so because it does not recognize a front-facing flash on my phone, it decides that it doesn't have one and that it's going to stream in this especially dark mode, which is honestly more annoying to me than Murnau, but like Murnau, I put up with it because, I don't know, I really like streaming for some reason. I don't know. Knowing that, people are there listening to me, prattle on about all sorts of stuff and nonsense, I don't know, it's oddly comforting somehow. And I had a bit of an anxiety take the other day. Sunday, was it? I think it was Sunday night. I was really anxious over stuff, and I still kind of am, but it's kind of petering down. And after I telco wife Abby, hey you, so the way I understand it, slow mode is usually for streams that have hundreds of people commenting, so it slows the chat down so it's easier to read. Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, I can see how that would be beneficial. Oh, hello, Fat Jesus, or I don't know. Do you mind if I just call you by Russell? Because that's like how I think you. Granted, I think I might have found your Facebook, but it's like I don't know if you're weird if you'd be weird about if I mentioned your last name. But yeah, okay. I don't. Long story short, my laptop barely works and I try to avoid using it until I absolutely have to right now. Um, it would be nice if I could replace my laptop sometime soon, and I'm going to, let's see. Yeah, I decided that Thanksgiving weekend I'm going to take apart at least one of the computers that my ex by the name of Calvin I mentioned my last name this time. Okay, no problem. Yeah, well, I don't remember if I know I saw somebody recommended to add to Facebook. I don't remember if I did or not because hold on. Okay, yeah, I don't remember if I added this recommended Russell on Facebook, but the picture looked like how your Instagram picture looks, and I remember it was I don't know, but like I said, I've been kind of on a hiatus from Facebook. I just don't enjoy Facebook as much as I once did, and so it's like the main reason I'm still on there is because that way I know I'm can talk to people over Messenger, which a lot of people seem to prefer lately over text messages for reasons I can't figure out because text messages, it doesn't matter if I'm connected to Wi-Fi or not. I'm still able to send and receive texts as long as I get, a cellular signal. A cartoon picture. I don't remember. I don't remember if it was a cartoon picture or not. That's how long ago it was. Or, okay, which in my case could mean it was even like 2 weeks ago or something, and it was just something I saw in passing, but yeah. I don't remember if I've made cat food over live stream before. 4, 5, 6, 7. Hello, Miss Phoebe. But yeah, so the little blender, behind the little blender that was going behind the phone. That's because Nigel does not like his wet cat food unless it is like a soupy consistency. As we can see here, this is like practically like a meat smoothie for cats in this condition. And the reason it's important um that they get wet cat food 3 4 5 6 7 besides the fact that they like it is because the way it digests it helps avoid creating urine crystals, which male cats can be especially prone to, especially at about Nigel and Phoebe's age and older. So, yeah, it digests better on cats. Dogs aren't really prone to urine crystals. I forget how urine crystals compare to kidney stones, but if it is comparable as far as pain goes, then yeah, I've had a kidney stone. I had a kidney stone this last December, um, which made me really grateful that I did not want to have kids before transitioning, but that's another story for another time. So, oh, hey, Siska's here! Hello! Ah, it's just a pain in the ass to oh. but, but yeah, so then what happens? Yeah, but yeah, Nigel likes his wet cat food as, like, soup. So I'm like, if it'll get him to eat it, then this is the way I do it. And of course, I have to do it for all 3 cats because you can't have, just one of them having a thing, especially since they all decide to trade off at some point. And I don't know why they trade it off amongst each other. It's the same thing in every dish, but yet this is how they do it. This is how pretty much all, you know, times I've lived with 3 cats and done this. This is how they do it. This is just how they do it. And it's like, but yeah, Nigel's the first one I've ever had who, you know, won't eat his wet food unless it's like a meat smoothie for cats. So, you know, you gotta do it in the way that you know they're going to eat it. Earlier today, I was thinking I might have made cookies on a stream tonight, but I decided against that once I got home because I just was not in the mood after my bus ride today. I would have said something on Twitter about it, but my Twitter account is temporarily suspended because it would have been only 12 hours, but I am requesting that the allegedly offending tweet in question be reviewed, and while I'm waiting for it to be reviewed, which has so far been 2 days, but yeah, while I'm waiting for this, I can't use Twitter. But yeah, I would have live tweeted about today on the bus on my way out to get almond milk and a couple of ill-begottens, and let your mind do what it does when I say that, because, yeah, the less I say about certain things, the better for all involved, and, yeah, I'll put that there for now. And, yes, I'm using a cutting board as a tray to deliver the cats their cat food. Hold on a sec.
Hey, cat. Have we got dinners for Miss Phoebe? Or for Miss Phoebe? Miss Phoebe? Does Phoebe want for dinners? And Murnau does want his dinners. And Nigel can have some dinners while I move things that Murnau will drag into the food dish, because that's just what he does. I don't know why Murnau is one of those cats who likes to bury food after he's decided he's done eating for now, because first off, he does not ever go back to unbury it, so, you know, there's that. And I have no idea how to encourage breaking this habit. Cats can be weird, but so sweet. And then Siska asks how I'm doing. Oh, yeah, cats can be weird, but so sweet. And, like, Murnau is very sweet, but sometimes he's very annoying. Like, first thing when I wake up, he is, like all up my ass. And, you know, just, like, wanting attention and pettins and all of that. And it's very cute and very sweet, but it is so annoying first thing in the morning. Especially with, I forget, did I stream last night or no, last night I went to Nectarine, so it was Sunday night. Yeah, Sunday night I was streaming. I forget if you were on there, Siska, and of course, I think 4 people now. But yeah, I was going on about my carpal tunnel syndrome neuropathy. I remember Amy Necrotique was in the chat that night. Yeah, Sunday night. And she's also got carpal tunnel syndrome with, you know, the intermittent associated neuropathy. And fortunately, I'm seeing my doctor not this week, but next week. I'm seeing her on the 4th of December. I've been on my own. I've tried what's the thing called? So I've got 100 milligram capsules of gabapentin, which is a medication that is often prescribed for nerve pain and nerve damage, which is what carpal tunnel syndrome is. So, like, there's this one main nerve called the carpal tunnel nerve that goes, like, through your wrist, and it's directly connected to these 3 fingers, which tends to be one of the more common ways that carpal tunnel syndrome gets diagnosed is
like, does the pain shoot up through these three fingers? So, this one, this one, and this one. And that's, and when it does, and, like, when you do get, like, the tingles and the numbness, does it tend to concentrate on these three fingers? And so, yeah, that is definitely how it is in my case. And it's been, like, this last couple weeks. Most mornings I wake up and it's a good half hour before I can use this hand for anything other than, like, the most rudimentary of tasks. And yeah, unfortunately, Sunday night after I wrapped up the thing I was doing and logged off, this hand was suddenly unusable for a time, and at some point I just, gave up, kept watching Bob's Burgers, and then went to bed. But tonight, I'm just gonna do what I can to work through the, any sort of associated pains and whatnot. Where is it? Hold on. I'm trying to remember where a hot sauce I like was put. Because my kitchen's kind of a mess. And when I say kind of a mess, I mean kind of a big mess. But it's been worse, trust me. Okay, I don't want the green pepper hot sauce. I should put a thing here so that the hot sauces can stay upright. I don't want the chili lime. I don't want the chipotle. I want the one with garlic. Oh, there it is. Oh, I've got two chili garlic. Why? Oh, wait, no, that's an original. I don't know why I've got an original. I barely use it. But I do have a chili garlic. Oh, yeah. Ooh, brand new chili garlic. Which makes sense because I did end up finishing off the previous chili garlic. Sounds bad, scary, I can imagine. Oh, yeah, about the carpal tunnel syndrome. Yeah, it's really awful. Fortunately, in a weird way, one of the things I can consistently do that seems to at least keep the nerve pain under control, at least while I'm doing it, is crochet, especially with lace weight and ultra fine yarns. So I've been doing a lot of that lately, and if things can't get under control, I mean, I've been thinking for a while. Oh yeah, it's. I can't tell if you can see this because it looks really dark on my side, but it's the Cholula, Cholula. It's their chili garlic variety. It's relatively new, so yeah, like dried peppers, arbol and pekin, vinegar, garlic, spices, natural flavors, xanthan gum, and dried garlic. Ooh, yeah, I thought there was. Oh, oh wow, I'm like half blind and I can see bits of dehydrated garlic floating around in this. That's yes, it's literally my favorite hot sauce right now. I like a bunch of the other ones for different things. Like I like their verde or their chili lime one on nachos a lot of times, but the chili garlic, it's good on pizza. It's good on one time I just did up some I get bricks of rice noodles sometimes, so I just like I don't know, like steamed them in my wok, threw in some vegetables and added a bunch of the chili garlic to it, and no, that was not a time I added I do I do kind of a ghetto style pad thai sometimes where I just take chunky peanut butter and throw it on rice noodles and like a handful of stir fry frozen vegetables and a handful of whatever meat or meat-like substitute, like the Quorn chicken style strips. I do that a lot of times, and sometimes just some regular hot sauce. Telco wife Abby, that condition really sucks. I know several people who have had surgery for it, and they've all been disappointed by it. Unfortunately, they say it's a temporary fix. Oh, I've heard mixed things about surgery for carpal tunnel syndrome. But yeah, I definitely need a new stabilizer sleep brace. I had one. I had one, and I think I came off a little bit bitchy on Sunday night's stream. At least I think I might have anyway. Um, because somebody was recommending that, and I'm like, yeah, I had one, but then Isaac came and his bed bugs came with him, and at some point I had to throw it away because, when I found it in the middle of cleaning, oh yeah, like that's like the primary reason I kind of like stopped using it for a while is because it got lost. Um, yeah, it got lost after I came home from surgery in 2017 and unpacked things. Um, so yeah, it got lost in the shuffle after surgery, um, and then when I did find it again, it was just like crusted in bed bug corpses. So I had to throw it out because at that point, like I couldn't, at that point I didn't even trust that if there was anything that would have died in the laundry that it could have been adequately washed to my liking. So yeah, I just had to throw it out because bed bugs. So yeah, like I've asked my doctor to prescribe me a new one, and somebody at University of Michigan Health System Orthotics was supposed to get a hold of me, but they never did. Or if they did, um, like either they left a voicemail, which I have the damnedest time trying to get into my voicemail. Like, as far as I'm concerned, at this point, it cannot happen. Like, it's really touch and go whether or not I can even retrieve voicemail from my Sprint account. Um, so yeah, like just assume that if you leave me a voicemail, I'm probably not going to get it, or at least like there's a 50% chance that I can get it, or that I even can get it, and then it's up to like, do I feel like messing around with my voicemail at that point, like, right? So if they did get a hold of me as they were supposed to, they may have left a voicemail, which I, for all intents and purposes, cannot retrieve. Um, so yeah, I'm gonna ask her for another prescription, and I'm gonna have her give me the number to orthotics so that they can set me up with that, and I can call them myself to make sure it happens. And then what happens is yeah, Amy recommended at least talking to my doctor about first like officially like gradually increasing my gabapentin dosage, because I think, well, when I was on 300 milligram the last time, I could not shake the dry mouth. Like it was like 6 months and I just could not shake the dry mouth. And so we went back down to 100 milligram capsules 3 times a day rather than the 300 3 times a day. So yeah, I'm thinking just because of like some of the other medications I'm on, wherein like I don't know. At some point, I was just like, you know what? This is my life now. I have dry mouth, so I'm always, like sucking on a hard candy like the old person I am, and drinking a shit ton of water. And I spend half my life going pee, which means like out at public urinals. About half the time, there's a chance somebody who walks into the men's room, if it's multi-stall, will hear me singing "Blister in the Sun" to myself, because I get pee shy at public urinals, and for some reason, that's the only thing that really seems to help. I don't know what it is about Blister in the Sun that allows my bladder to expel whatever urine is trapped inside there while I'm at a public urinal, but when I'm singing Blister in the Sun, and it has to be out loud at, like, at the very least, just above whisper level decibels, I probably sound insane right now. But it's like, this is my weird life. This is my weird life. This is my weird body. I'm gonna first take my dinner over to the front room, and then I'm going to grab the phone and hopefully keep streaming from the front room. Hold on a sec. And now for part 2. Any... hey, if it helps you piss, it helps you piss. Oh, yeah, Blister in the Sun. That's... I once recommended that to Angela Benedict, I believe, when she was live streaming a couple months back and was talking about how sometimes her dog, Bam Bam, gets pee shy, or, you know... Oh, Jesus Christ. Hello? Damn it. Is it still streaming? Okay. Oh, what the hell, phone? Okay. Siska, no, you don't sound weird. I have to go. Wish you good day, my dear. Oh, well, you stay well too, Siska. I like seeing you here. Okay, Fat Jesus says yes, so I'm assuming that means yes, it is still streaming. Oh my gosh. Gosh. Yeah, I really do need to find a better, streaming app for my phone, because, this thing is just so dark, and every time I try to... Ah! And every time I try to, give it more light, nothing works. Like, nothing I do, like, actually makes more light that I can tell, and... damn it. If I flipped the phone the other way, it will broadcast upside down. And Cat, please don't. If I flipped the phone the other way, it will broadcast upside down. So, like, obviously, like, Streamlabs is not the best, thing to use on my phone, but this is my only way I can stream, and, here's the remote. Okay, so... Now, people are talking at me. The what? Wait, what? What's going on? Damn it. Oh, and by the way, I love the weird sound you make when you drop shit. I see something, I don't know what it is. Oh dear. Some monster or creature from something. OMG. The Coneheads? No. The aliens from Mars Attacks? Oh gosh. I liked Mars Attacks better than a lot of people seem to, because, like, I enjoyed Ed Wood movies, before, I saw that, and, like, that was his first one that Tim Burton made after his Ed Wood biopic. So, like, it just instantly made sense to me that Mars Attacks was Tim Burton paying homage to, like, Ed Wood and Bird Eye Gordon and all of those other wonderfully terrible sci-fi action, cheap B movie directors from the 50s. So yeah, like there's like too much stuff going on all at once in that movie, which is like one of the more reasonable criticisms I seek, from people who understand what Burton was trying to do with that film. And I can understand that can be kind of grating, like, because you're trying to figure out, like, because, you're just trying to keep track of all of what's going on. But, but yeah, that's also, like, kind of part of the charm for it to me, because a lot of times those movies, like, there's a couple of them. One that really specifically comes to mind is, hold on a sec, I'm starting to lose feeling in my fingers, and then I'll drop my pills, and I can't let that happen. Like, I almost dropped one just then, because I couldn't, I've got, like, almost no feeling in the tips of these two fingers. Seriously? There we go. Okay. So there's one film from that era. I want to say it was finally released in 1962, I want to say. And note I said finally released. This was one of those movies that actually, like, had a couple of years between filming sessions. At some point, the director just wanted to get it finished enough to release it and at least hopefully at least break even on it. And I don't think that even happened. But yeah, Monster A Go Go. My friend Patrick has described Monster A Go Go as one of the Mystery Science Theater movies that just kind of ended, and it also sort of has this feeling of two completely different movies that are somehow mashed together into one film. And that was a common enough thing then. Like, there are MST films that they did not even, or at least, like, hopeful MST films that did not even get on the show, because they're just like, this is just too much. Like, we cannot put an audience through this. And so and yeah, like, there were a lot that ended up feeling like two movies just kind of smashed together, because that's ultimately what happened. Was either they tried to finish the film as it was written, but because the other actors had either decided, because the original actors had decided to, quit acting, or were busy with other things, like, like real movies, or something. Or time had just passed, and, like, I don't know, like, depending on what it was, like, an actor might have died or something. So they tried to, like, write around that, and, like, write in completely different characters, but give them the lines and motives of the previous. I don't know. It's one of those things where, like, like, either they tried to finish the film as it was, or they had two unfinished movies that they tried to combine into something watchable. So, yeah, like, that's kind of how I understand, what Tim Burton was going for with Mars Attacks. And because it's an homage to that kind of thing, it's not. I wouldn't think it. I don't necessarily think Mars Attacks is as enjoyable to watch as actual Ed Wood movies are. Just because there's this naivete to Ed Wood's filmmaking that just makes it somehow really enjoyable to watch. Like, some of the actors, like, you can. Please don't. There's onion powder in those chips. I know there's cheddar and sour cream on them as well, but you cannot have because onion powder is bad for kitties. Um, but yeah, what was I saying? Right. So yeah, there's this naivete to Ed Wood's films where y- like sometimes like the actors what was the one guy's name? Ray Conrad, something like that. I know Conrad was in his name somehow. And he had an interview segment in one of the DVD releases of Mystery Science Theater. Um, 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 um. It was one of the Ed Wood movies. It was one of the lesser known Ed Wood movies. I think. Was it Sinister Urge? I think. I don't know. It was one of the lesser known Ed Wood movies, and Roy Conrad or something. He had some interview pieces on the DVD extras, and he had mentioned that like he was actually a competent actor. He was actually a competent actor. I mean, like he wasn't like groundbreaking acting abilities. Definitely no Basil Rathbone at the very least, right? And Basil Rathbone being like from Shakespearean school of acting, he's always hamming it up because he's this like grand melodramatic theatrical style actor. He's not a a TV talkie film era style actor where you're going for something a bit more believable. But like Conrad something like he's a competent actor. He can do the part as he can definitely work with the script, and it's competent. It's not like I said, this is not like like stellar acting abilities or anything, but he's competent, and you can tell he's having a great time doing it. But he says that like pretty much all of the actors on the films knew that Ed Wood was not making good movies, that these were bad scripts, even for the B movie set in Hollywood at the time. And like Ed Wood, though, either he was completely unaware of just how insipid and nonsensical his scripts could be. Like either he was completely unaware, or he didn't really care. He just enjoyed making movies, right? like or some combination of the two. Like I think at some point he had to grasp that this was not going to be any kind of groundbreaking filmmaking, but he was doing what he enjoyed, and he was great to work with. Like um, Roy Conrad or whatever. Like yeah, the Conrad guy. He was just like, yeah, like Ed was great to work with. Like we all kept working with him, especially like Conrad. He was in several Ed Wood movies. He usually playing a cop. Usually the bumbling, wisecracking officer, getting out of the car in various scenes. He was usually playing a cop in Ed Wood movies. And and yeah, like Tor Johnson did a couple of Ed Wood movies in addition to Plan 9. So so yeah, like Ed Wood was just great fun to work with. Like people enjoyed working with him because he treated the actors pretty well. Like you weren't gonna like make like you through other acting jobs you probably would be able to like just about make your rent money working on an Ed Wood movie or something. Like but like his films were also like catered because he had a lot of friends working in places who would like give him a sharper discount, or at least be like hey at least we'll, people will see your movies, not a whole lot, but people will see them. And if it says catered by such and such, then yeah, sure, it's advertisement. What? Sure, why not? And Ed, he's a great guy. He's terrible director, terrible screenwriter, but he's a nice guy. He's nice and he's fun to work with, and that's pretty much how he kept making movies. And but yeah, but because of that naivete and that just like that earnestness to it, like that's kind of where I feel like Mars Attacks kind of fails. Like I understand what Tim Burton was doing, and I appreciate his efforts, but it's not nearly as enjoyable as an actual Ed Wood movie or an actual Bird-Eyed Gordon movie, or along the or any of the other oh crap Roger Corman was another one. He was a bit later in the game. Like, he was best known for his work in the 70s, where he was just kind of embraced by the punk set at some point. Like, he did Rock and Roll High School with the Ramones. And he was also more out of New York rather than Southern California, like Bird Eye Gordon and Ed Wood and a couple other people who I'm totally brain farting on right now. And
On the grounds that it was hate speech which incited violence.
oh gosh, I'm watching Rose of Dawn. I know a lot of people are just like, oh, she's just like a British Blair White. And I'm like, that's not a totally bad thing. And it's like, I don't know. I've got mixed feelings about Blair White. I really do. On one level, I kind of see a little bit of myself in Blair White at, in that, like, when, especially my younger self, I see a bit of my younger self in there where, like, I can be kind of obnoxious about, like, really stupid things and sometimes, like, dig my heels in. And so I kind of see that. I think there's a bit of political naivete in Blair White, and yes, I know a lot of people like to consider her herself alt-right, but I think it's just more like she's popular with alt-right people because things that she actually says, she's definitely conservative when she's talking political stuff. She's definitely conservative, far more conservative than myself, but she's a bit closer to the center than a lot of her fans are. And that's definitely a distinction I have to make when I'm talking about her with people, because it's like I'm like, she's a bit more like, on the moderate side of libertarian, if that makes sense. I'm like, yeah, she's a lot more conservative than myself about things, but that does not make her like clear, like, the polar opposite. Like, I'm an anarcho-socialist, right? I'm like, I like the idea of something decentralized. Granted, I've taken the 8-point leftist values quiz. It considered me eco-Marxist, whatever the hell that's supposed to mean, which suggests that I like things a little bit more centralized than somebody on the anarchist side of Marxism would. I guess I can sort of see that, but if only because I believe in a transitory stage between what we've got now and anarcho and like an anarchist society. I believe there should be a transitory stage, or else a lot of people are going to get left in the dust and just be incredibly, and it will be the most vulnerable people, which I think a lot of the staunch anarchists that I know like really don't acknowledge. It's one of the things that I've always, oh gosh, I've got so many complaints, and this is where, like, unless you're part of the pagan community, this is probably going to make no sense to you. And by pagan community, I mean, like, online pagan polytheist blogosphere. A lot of people who were either once connected to or used to write guest pieces for the Wild Hunt and or Pathos pagan portal. So yeah, like, unless you're like at least aware of that segment of the pagan community, it's probably gonna make no sense to you. But like, Reed Wildermuth is one of those people who I always felt like I should like him more than I do, and there are a lot of reasons for that. It's like, I mean, he can be kind of personable when you're speaking to him in person, which I have done. I met him at the Polytheist Leadership Conference, wherein I was part of a very poorly planned panel on sexual ethics in the polytheist community. Like, the people who set up that panel, like, gave me no instructions to prepare myself for the panel. And I'm not the only person they gave zero information to. The other person they gave zero information to, she missed her flight and was unable to make it, and therefore, was not actually on the panel, even though she was scheduled to be. But yeah, like, I talked with her about it later, and she says, wow, so yeah, like, they told you they told me nothing either. I'm like, wow, so we both would have been very, very ill prepared. And I kind of wished at that point that she had made her flight, because then it would have been clear to a friend of mine who says I quote unquote blew it at the panel. I'm like, no, I didn't blow it. They told me nothing. Like, the two friends of yours who organized this panel allegedly, like, they told me nothing. They told the other three people a lot of shit, but they told me nothing. And apparently they told Anya nothing as well. So I'm like, there would have been two people flailing around, like, last minute, like, like, oh my shit. Like, I get up there, I was prepared for a Q&A, but apparently everybody else on the panel, except for myself and Anya, had these prepared statements, like, to begin, and then there was going to be a Q&A. I thought it was going to be a complete Q&A, like at Comic-Con or something, right? Like, that's what I was prepared for. I was prepared for Q&A. I had index cards with notes on them, and then I left those index cards at home on accident because I was flailing to get to my train on time, so I ended up rewriting them in the hotel room that I was sharing with my friend Emily, but yeah, it's like, I don't know. I'm going on, but yeah, like, Rose of Dawn, I'd say she's a bit more on the libertarian side of libertarian than Blair White is on a lot of things. But then there's other things where I'm like, okay, I see points where I can see myself, at the very least, having polite, respectful discussions with both of these women, and that's why I have their respect and why I find them at least kind of entertaining. And I heard a ping on here, like, a few minutes ago while I was talking. Trying to figure out what... Oh, right, we're talking about here. Oh, somebody, came on. Mozana RN. Hello. Hello, Mozana! And Fat Jesus says, that he loves Blair, and I also don't disagree with... Seriously? Hello? Where did chat go? Will that bring it back? Please? There we go. Yeah, I know a few people who also watch Blair and are just like, yeah, I barely agree with anything she says, but bought her t-shirt that says my pronouns are that and bitch. Oh, gosh. I loved that goddamn Jessica Yaniv, debate. Oh, God. Like, and I always say debate in dick quotes because that's how she titles it. Well, Blair titled it as a debate, but it's more, it just, I don't know. It just felt more like an interview of sorts. Like I would call it more of an interview the way that it ended up being. And Blair White is adorable. She'll hopefully get her head on right about a lot of things, and if not, she could be so much worse, right? I know people who are so much worse than her about a lot of things. But yeah, Rose of Dawn, she comes off a bit more like, I kind of want to say, like, she comes off a bit more genteel. Part of it is she's got she's got a significant Welsh accent. Like, there's a hard K sound when she pronounces G's on the end of things. So yeah, that means it wasn't my grandmother whose voice she reminds me of. It's more my grandfather, who was originally from Cornwall, and he had that hard K sound. Of course, my grandmother might have also picked up that on some words, since they were together, like, since they were teenagers, literally. But yeah, I love Rose of Dawn. She's, she comes off a bit more, not so much sassy, but sarcastic, and it's like that subtle, dry sarcasm, that you see in, like, old Monty Python, sketches with, like, John Cleese, like, at the there's a few Monty Python sketches where, it's not quite as over-the-top silly, and so, yeah, I don't know, I just love her. I love her. She's adorable. And I've been watching Rose of Dawn since just before all hell broke loose on the Jessica Yaniv BS, And I don't know. I feel like I'm one of those people who was just like there before she was famous, and like, you know, she's like she's like got a fraction of Blair White's audience and a small one at that. But I'm just like, oh my gosh, I was watching you since you were since she, like, just before she had like 10,000 subscribers, and now she's got well over it's a lot. It's a lot. I forget the last count, but last count, she did a live stream, and she's just like, she's clearly overwhelmed, and it's adorable. And god damn it, the TV went to black again. Hello, play video from start. Hello. There we go. Oh my gosh, my Roku thing is so annoying sometimes.
So the first story that I want to talk about,
Oh well.
is one of the most, if not the most controversial, to a lot of feminist events, and talks about her.
If it seems like I'm ignoring the stream, it's because I'm eating, and
generally quite hard line, and there are certainly.
well, I normally feel kind of self-conscious about how I look while I'm eating.
She first became in the public eye.
I don't know.
Year,
I've had a bit of a day, so
because she said mean
like
things
the fucks I can give are like this high.
The Mermaid's founder. Again, I did a video about that at the time where I discussed that you can disagree with what Posey Parker says, and that you can think it is indeed quite cruel what she says. However, she should be free to say what she believes, because this is how you get productive conversations. And last week she appeared on the Trigonometry podcast hosted by Constantine Thyssen and Francis Foster. Now, both Francis and Constantine have said that Parker is probably one of the most controversial guests that they've had on the channel. In fact, they pushed back on her more than they pushed back on anyone else, because while they agreed with some things she said, there was quite a few things which they didn't agree with. Despite this, and despite the fact they was really getting quite a productive conversation, YouTube decided that this isn't on, and as a result the video was yeeted on the grounds that it was hate speech which incited violence or hatred. According to Trigonometry Twitter account, they said that the slogan of their show is that we don't pretend to be experts, we ask the experts. We're just two comedians who are trying to make sense of the world and educate ourselves on the key contested issues of the day. They mentioned that earlier this year they had India Willoughby on, a trans TV presenter in the UK, and then they go into a bit more detail about Posey Parker, who says trans women are not real women. They say she said many things that made sense to us during the 1 hour interview, and some which didn't, and which we didn't agree with. We challenged her more than any guest in the 18-month history of our show. Today, YouTube took down the full interview on the grounds it is hate speech which incites hatred and or violence against protected groups. This was following a manual review. Our channel was given a warning. If we get 3 more, our channel will be deleted. The video was seen by about 35,000 people, the vast majority of whom criticised us for challenging Posey too much. Even our transgender guest, who is no fan of Posey Parker, agrees she has a right to speak. Now, thankfully, the video was reinstated following a backlash when this got covered by various outlets such as Spiked, and even Constantine wrote for Quillette, explaining the whole bizarreness of this situation. Now, it's good that the video has come back and that people can actually watch it and come to their own conclusion as to whether Posey is right or wrong. There were things in the video that I personally disagreed with, but I think what the big concern here isn't so much what I disagreed with, but the fact that this got taken down in the first place. We're very used to the idea that disagreeing with the trans narrative is something which is considered almost immoral by the woke today, and Posey is someone who has certainly fallen foul of this on many occasions. For example, her Twitter account has been completely removed from her as well. I've watched this video, and there is nothing in there which comes close to inciting hatred or violence at all. She words things quite strongly. She words things in a way which I think is unfair.
Nigel's here.
That doesn't mean that it is violence, however. But really none of that should come as a surprise when you have, for example, articles by Riley Dennis talking about how misgendering is an act of violence. And of course, in the interview, Posey Parker talks about how she will never use a trans person's preferred pronouns no matter what the situation is. Something I can disagree with, but an act of violence? No, it isn't. It's a ridiculous stretch to say that not referring to someone in the way that they like is tantamount to beating, because ultimately we know what violence means. It's not a disagreement. Just because you're removing the platform away from people you disagree with doesn't mean that idea is ever going to go away. All you're going to do is push it underground, and people will resent you more and more for making these actions to completely get rid of it. And the fact that this had to be removed from manual review means that there were indeed people flagging it because they just didn't like it. The whole idea that this was going to somehow encourage violence against people. And we always hear this narrative that, it's the gender critical feminists who are the ones who are going to be inciting violence against us. They're the reasons why we get beaten on the street. When I discussed the Trans Day of Remembrance last week, I mentioned about how groups such as conservatives and gender critical feminists are usually blamed for violence against trans people, but where is the actual link that directly correlates to it? Do you really think that a bloke down the pub is going to go and assault some tranners because Posey Parker doesn't use our preferred pronouns? I somehow don't think that's going to happen. Now, this is concerning that platforms can be removed, and I think that the best way forward when it comes to just having this trans debate is to indeed have a full debate about it. I should note that I am going to be appearing on Trigonometry. At some point I recorded with Constantine and Francis just the other day. That will be up at some point. I will let you all know when that will be. Now, the next story that I want to discuss involves a clip that seems to have been going a little bit viral on Twitter, and it's something I've seen a lot of people sharing. And I just wanted to discuss the story because it's one where I'm a little bit confused as to what the purpose of this really is. Transgender students win unrestricted locker room access in Palatine Schaumburg High Schools. The Palatine Schaumburg High School District's 211 board on Thursday voted to give transgender students unrestricted access to locker rooms and restrooms. The vote was 5-2. The district superintendent said this policy doesn't mean anyone can just go into any locker room or restroom at any time. The policy requires a student and parent to have communication with a district and come up with a plan. School District Superintendent Dan Cates said, "We believe this is now the time to move forward with this policy, though we would not plan to implement it until the start of the second semester in January." During the public comment period before the vote, one teen, who identified herself as a student in the district, expressed discomfort with unrestricted locker room access, saying, "I do not want to see a transgender student naked in the locker room. I do not want a transgender student to see me naked in a locker room." But another student said, "Anyone can use the changing rooms if they want to, but no one should be forced to. The district should be helping trans students, not putting more obstacles in front of them." For almost 4 years, trans students in the district have had to use a nurse's office or private stalls to change clothes.
Yeah, it passed. It passed.
And how's that make you feel?
Oh, I'm ecstatic.
I'm sorry.
Uncomfortable that my privacy is being invaded. As I am a swimmer, I do change multiple times naked in front of the other students in the locker room. And I understand that the board has an obligation to all students, but I was hoping that they would go about this in a different way that would also accommodate students such as myself.
So one of those students who is clearly trans is overjoyed at the idea of being able to use the female changing rooms, whereas the female student in the video is not, clearly doesn't look happy, to say the least. Now, I've seen a lot of reporting on, in particular, the latter student, where people have been saying that, she's in tears and she's very close to tears. She's certainly emotional in the clip, but I don't think the hyperbole really helps. I think that she has valid concerns. You don't really need to butter it up any more than it already is. For me, I find this quite strange because puberty is a time in which teenagers are very self-conscious about their bodies. Not just trans teenagers, but female or male teenagers as well. everyone feels a little bit awkward about it. So this is the time you're going to be very, very self-conscious, and especially if you're a trans person who at this point might not even have started a medical transition, or if they have, will be incredibly, be very soon into it. Now, being in a changing room with lots of people who, are biologically female, or if it's the other way around, biologically male, I find it a bit strange that someone would want to put themselves in that kind of position. As it mentioned in here, when you had the girl saying that, well, she doesn't want to see trans people, and she doesn't want trans people to see her, I'm sure a lot of trans kids feel the same as well, in particular with people seeing them, or they don't want to be seen by other people. I could think of that being quite common.
Okay, I'm gonna like interject here. I don't know how much of this is being picked up. I mean, the mic on the phone is facing the television right now, but I don't know how much is being picked up by it. So yeah, Rose of Dawn, she said that it's an issue in the States where in Illinois, I believe, the little newspaper bit that she posted said it was at high school has voted to allow excuse me oh dear trans students into the changing room into the changing rooms and restroom facilities at the high school to the excuse me to the gender that is closest with one's neurological identity. Okay, fair enough. But Rose has expressed some confusion as to why trans students who are more likely to be like especially self-conscious, even when even compared to already like self-conscious teenagers who would be cis, like like teenagers of any gender or whatnot are going to be like self-conscious about like really vulnerable states like that, like in like the locker rooms for phys ed class or before and after like a sport event that they're on a team for and all of that. And yeah, like I was on swim team in high school. Being trans male, I don't know, I just like, well, I wasn't out in high school because this was the mid 1990s. So I like wasn't even like transitioning, like in high school. I wasn't really out because my dad was Catholic, and in some ways he was fairly traditional, but in other ways it was, I could understand why some people would consider him a conservative, but at the same time, like he was like a staunch like straight ticket Democrat as far as his voting went, and he had a lot of reasons for that. He also loved Bill Clinton, and he thought Hillary, back when like Bill was in the White House, was president, he recognized Hillary as like the kind of the driving force behind Bill. So I think my dad would have just absolutely loved, like, would have like been like so much cheerleader for HRC during her 2016 campaign. But yeah, like I would always like change in the toilet stalls which had doors on them because I didn't want to look at anybody. I didn't want anybody looking at me. But like as to like why trans teenagers would want this, I think it's obvious that it's just like it's just like the validation and the recognition, which is why they would want this. It's not necessarily. I mean, I'm sure there might be some like disingenuous teenagers who like if you're thinking like the more reasonable kind of disingenuousness, like they would be like non-binary identified and like probably bisexual or something, and like I don't know, like, and maybe not really consciously doing, like wanting to be in the opposite sexed changing rooms to get their jollies. Like they wouldn't be consciously thinking that, but that would just kind of be like a subconscious, like hey, bonus to this, like while weaponizing the whole like non-binary thing. But I think like like the average trans teenager who would even want this, like we're talking like binary trans people, all of that, it should be obvious that it's just like wanting the validation. Like even if they're going to be like especially self-conscious as teenagers and like like go into the toilet stall which has a door on it in the gym locker rooms, to do their changing, it's like it's just the validation. It's just the recognizing someone as their gender. Like that just seems obvious to me. I don't know.
And so the original compromise was always use a different changing room, and I would say that would be the ideal situation here. None of them are going to have gone through surgery or have gone through extensive medical pathway just yet. So why is it so important to use the changing room? Bear in mind, we're not talking about bathrooms here. It's specifically talking about changing rooms. Now, the school does clarify that in order to be able to use the changing rooms, you would need to, it wouldn't be just a decision down to the students, it would involve their parents as well. Although they do say that anyone who has a problem with this can go and use their own bathroom. And it kind of reminds me of a South Park episode from a couple of years ago. So I find this quite an awkward push. I think that, especially as a teenager in a room with other teenagers, I don't think this is anything that has any kind of sexual connotation to it at all. I don't get that impression of anyone who's talked about it. But I do think that this isn't the best idea. I think that if you are a trans girl teenager, are you really comfortable with being in a changing room where, okay, maybe if everyone isn't naked, but you're going to be in underwear, are they not going to see what's down there? Is that like, do you not, like, surely you wouldn't want people to notice that, and if you're in your underwear, it's probably going to be quite noticeable. Why don't you just get changed in a separate room? I think that would be fine. I don't think that this needs to be open to everyone, or at the very least, on a case-by-case basis. The school's ruling is simply anyone who identifies in that way. Doesn't really give a ground line for how long a transition needs to have gone on for, or whether they need to be on any kind of medical treatment or anything like that. It could, based on the rules, it could literally be that little Timmy says that Timmy is now a female, and so doesn't, has his female beard growing in. I know that's it, and so can use that changing room, and I know that's a ludicrous step. However, the rule does allow that. Technically, the rule does allow that. So, there's something about this that seems a little bit off. I'll be completely honest. And whilst I certainly know that teenagers transitioning is controversial, and again, it is something that my opinion is always evolving on, there is something about this that I think that it would just be better if they just changed in their own area where they have privacy. After all, I think it's important for the trans person to have privacy here. But that's just me, I suppose. And the last story that I want to touch on this week involves a group known as Fair Cop. Now, they've been around for a couple of months, and they're one which I haven't really talked about. However, now that the legal action is going ahead, it is something that I would just kind of like to discuss a little bit. Police transgender rules breach rights to free speech, courts told. Official police guidance on recording hate incidents against transgender people imposes a substantial chilling effect on freedom of expression, the High Court has been told by lawyers representing a former officer. Harry Miller, who served with Humberside Police, was contacted by the force earlier this year after a complaint from a member of the public about allegedly transphobic comments he made on his Twitter account, Harry the Owl. Another officer told Miller he had not committed a crime, but his tweeting was being recorded as a hate incident under the College of Policing's guidelines on hate crime, the High Court in London heard. The guidance defines a hate incident as any non-crime incident which is perceived by the victim or any other person to be motivated by a hostility or prejudice against a person who is transgender or perceived to be transgender. Miller launched legal action against the College of Policing, the professional body for the police service in England and Wales, and Humberside Police. It's the second high-profile case being heard this week in London involving a clash between free speech and trans rights. So it should be noted that Miller became well known earlier this year for retweeting a limerick about trans people. That was kind of where all of this came from, and since then it's kind of snowballed. Ultimately, I wish them support in this. I think that you should be allowed to discuss trans issues online without a crime or hate incident being recorded against you. I think it's bizarre that what even happened to Harry earlier in the year, that just seems to be a thing which is accepted, and the police seem to think that it's part of what they're allowed to do. What I would be interested in knowing when it comes to Fair Cop, though, is whether they would want to extend this to anything else, or are they only concerned about hate incidents being recorded when it comes to the discussion of trans issues? Because if it is that, and they only want special exemptions just for them to talk about what they want, but it wouldn't matter if it was to impact other people, that might not necessarily sit right with me. For example, if someone was to say something that the gender critical movement didn't like and they thought was hateful, that was reported to the police and it was recorded as a hate incident, would Fair Cop think that was okay? I mean, that's just a hypothetical question because I don't think that has ever happened, but I just kind of wanted to put the question out there. Ultimately, I think that this is a fight which needs to be done because we're finding more and more people being censored online. As I mentioned Posey Parker earlier, but you even get trans people talking about trans issues, and they get yeeted off the likes of Twitter, and you had Miranda Yardley earlier this year, love him or hate him, and he got, that went to the police as well, and that actually went through into court. And all of this is just for talking about trans stuff. I can't help but feel that despite this being a reflection of some of the, one of the smallest groups out there, really, it's becoming like on the forefront of the fight for free speech. Because there seems to be a bizarre line here where we can't cross it, and it seems to be declared by a number of hardline activists who just seem to have good links to people in power. I think it's important what Harry is doing, and I wish him all the support. But what are your thoughts on the stories I've covered this week? Is there anything in particular I've missed out? Please let me know in the comments. Thank you all so much for watching. I am sorry that there wasn't a Trans Stupid last week. However, I hope you all enjoyed the Baby Seal Spectacular. And if you guys like that enough, maybe there might be one in the future. And it might feature this chap. Like, look at him. Look at him. No, he is trying to get over the ice and failing.
Oh my gosh.
But anyway, if you enjoy what I do, please be sure to like and subscribe. You can also support me on Patreon and Subscribestar, and you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram as well. Thank you once again, and I'll see you all next time. And a special thanks to Alex Meadows, Casey Adolphson, Dan Norman, Fenella Cooney, James C. George, Kim Vandry, Latin Creature, Liz Udesu, Nova B, Ricardo Jose, Rose Hypnol, Stephen, The Poor of Rizzo, Traname Girl, Green Potato Chips, Laisha, James Dorans, James UK, Moy Felicita, Kim Vandry, Sarah, and the rest of my supporters on Patreon.
Whoa. Fat Jesus, it's all good. Eat it the fuck up. Oh god. At 2, I'll be charging my phone. I charge it over my break at work. Oh, that's fine. Oh, wow. Mozana RN. $10 from Mozana RN. Pear character flying in the air with a red cape and a smile on his face. Oh my god! Did you super chat me? $10. That's precious. Thank you so much.
So last Christmas, Genius here
Oh
eats
gosh.
a piece of it. Fast forward 24 hours.
You've
she's
got to say
4 inches of
Frank.
it hanging right out of her ass. It's like the corn kernel of Christmas decorations. Went right through her. So she's walking around and she looks like one of
I
those
need a television with smart volume.
I love you, but I'm not pulling that out.
Especially for when I'm watching YouTube videos,
By the way,
because
that's the definition.
the volumes can be all over the place sometimes.
It's hard to love something that
But yes, thank you so much for the $10 super chat,
Feels like fast acupuncture.
Mozana RN. That's oh my gosh, I thank you so much. I'm still like not sure when that when those payouts arrive,
But I always felt judged
relative to when they're made. But thank you so much. Oh gosh.
Then they put all kinds of crap on it, right, to weigh it down.
Was it you or somebody else who did a $10 on super chat the last time I did one, or the last time I got a super chat, excuse me, payment, which I think was about a week and a half ago, something like that. Something like that. Murnau, do you know?
I'm sorry. He's a bit of a humper.
Murnau, why don't you know?
Awkward at the holiday parties.
It's okay, you're cute. You're cute. That makes it okay.
That's what holiday parties are. A chance to come together and see that everyone can be an idiot. Don't take it from me, but yeah, most cats were on the nip all through the holidays. That's how we make it through. Just a blur of colorful lights, and then you wake up in the new year. Plus, now it's legal. Are you seeing
You're
this?
cute little fluffy.
Suddenly, there's just lots of ants.
Have you come to
But
say
like
thank you
superhero
for all
ants.
the dinners that I
Paranoid?
made?
No, I'm not paranoid.
Yes,
What,
I
are you
made
paranoid?
dinners
I feel
for
like I'm moving my head a
kitties.
lot, like more
I
than
made
normal. But like
dinners
if I
for
stop thinking about it,
kitties.
I might not
Yes,
move my
I
head at all.
do.
What were we talking about?
Oh, you're
yeah,
so
holidays. Yeah, I mean it's like a bird.
Am I being
Sorry,
annoying?
question. How long has it been since I blinked? I mean,
Yes,
at first it feels
probably.
like the whole world's trying to pet you. And let's
Am I
not
being
talk
annoying?
about dreams. No, so I
You're
dreamt
annoying a lot of
that I
times.
coughed up a hairball.
And yet I deal with
That
it.
looked
I
like Santa Claus.
deal with it
And
because
stood
you're
up
my kitty and I
walked
love you.
around me
Mwah.
and climbed into my bag. And then I coughed it up again.
He's so
and it
cute.
went around and around like that, like I was
And he loves to be
lying in the water.
thumped and
Listen, in the
spanked.
holidays, you see these once-a-year friends, like the neighbor's Pekingese, you know, and they mean well. Oh, what have you been up to? So you condense a year of life into like 3 sentences, and then you're like, oh crap.
You're a
is that really
cutie.
it? And of course it's not. When all the small things don't make it into that story. You figure
hi.
out how to jump on top of the living room
That was
bookshelf,
Cattail.
or in the middle of the night when you jump on
Oh,
the bed.
yes, that was me too. I so enjoy your YouTube videos. Well, thank you so much. I have no idea why anybody enjoys my YouTube videos. Hello, sorry for getting here so late. Oh, that's no problem. I was like, I don't know. You didn't miss a whole lot. You missed me make cat food for the cats and then have my own dinner, so...
By Audible. If you're like me, you like listening to a good story. You know, the classics, like The Art of Racing in the Rain, or A Dog's Purpose, or Will My Cat Eat My Eyeballs. Audible has those, among a vast selection of audiobooks. They
I'm
also
not
have
entirely
exclusive
sure what
Audible
I'm
originals
up to
created by
this
some of the
evening.
best storytellers. For a limited time, you can get 3 months of Audible for just $6.95.
But yes, hello. Hello, Emerald Sturgeon.
Choose one audiobook.
Hey,
2 Audible
does Murnau want to say
originals for
hi to
free,
the
and
peoples?
they're yours to keep.
Does Murnau
Visit
wants to say hi to the peoples of the internet?
audible.com/CEFRANK, or
Yes.
text CEFRANK
Yes, he does.
to 500 500. It's a good gift for the holidays.
Oh,
For
you're
someone
such a
you love,
cutie.
for yourself.
Yes, I see your fluffy bottom.
CEFRANK,
It is fluffy, and it is your bottom.
500 500.
This cat is so weird.
So listen, I say don't do the nip every day, or else you'll end up looking like me.
Hey everyone, welcome back. Today we are diving deeper into
Ah,
the
yes.
rabbit hole.
And
We
now
are going to
somebody
compare
making
arguably
commentary
the
on
turning
Amberlyn
point
Reed.
of Amber's YouTube career.
The only time, like, I only
In today's
watch, like,
installment of
Amberlyn Reed and
History
Foodie Beauty
Lesson,
through
we are going
their
to talk
comment-
about
through the
Amber
commentary
in
channels.
the Casey era. I felt like it was natural to break up the history lesson of Amber because there is just so much to go over, and I feel like it naturally flows into the relationship cycles that have happened, like Casey, Crystal, Destiny, Becky.
Aw.
That's how people really deep
Hey,
into
Murnau,
Amber
people saying
Casey,
hi to
I
you.
personally feel, so I feel like
Aw.
it's easy to follow that.
Yes, you're such a cute
So in
kitty.
this video, we're going to talk about Casey and what the heck is everybody talking about when they're referencing false allegations
Oh, you're so
and
pretty.
everything surrounding that.
Yes, I see your pretty fluffy bottom.
Q&As,
Look at
question
this.
boards, anything
He's
of
such
that
a little
sort, and
weirdo.
don't know what's happening, this is for you. And we're going to get into it. Honestly, if YouTube monetizes this, I will be shocked. Normally in my videos I skeet
away from certain words because of the algorithm and just YouTube in general, but there's really no way around it this time, I feel. With that being said, in this video, there are strong themes and conversation about domestic violence, so if that is not something you're comfortable with, then I suggest you do not watch this video, and just a heads up that throughout this video, we are going to talk about things like that. Some ground rules before we start going into this video.
He's rubbing his face all over my little yarn hamper here.
Only going to refer to Casey with his proper pronouns, which are he, him, no ifs, ands, or buts. I personally feel very strongly about this, and in my opinion, if you have a valid argument, you will respect somebody's identity and then prove it. To this day, Amber continues to misgender Casey and use the incorrect pronouns, as well as Casey's dead name, which is incredibly inappropriate to me. Do you want to be like Amber? Do you want to misgender somebody? Because if you do that, in my eyes, you are no better than Amber in this argument. And chances are you don't want to be like that. So, moving on.
Why,
I will be talking about Casey's video and the points I got directly from that video itself. That's where I got them, and that's where I got all of my information from regarding that. However, I will not be linking Casey's video because multiple times it has been said that they don't want to be involved. He doesn't want to be involved with this. He doesn't want to be involved in the drama. The video is out there. It's public. It's very heavily circulated throughout the community, and it's really not that difficult to find. And I felt like it was important to talk about this aspect because there are a lot of questions, and people don't necessarily understand what is being referenced when people do talk about this. So I think it is important to talk about this, but I also don't want to link the direct video. If you want to look for it, it's very easy to find, but I'm just not going to click a link where it can direct you to there. And that's it with the spiel.
You're silly. Did you know you're a silly cat?
A large majority of this era happens before Amber even made her first video on YouTube.
Goofball.
In Casey's video, which was published in 2016, he says that his relationship with Amber ended about 6 years ago, so that dates us around 2010.
Goofball.
The two met online while Amber was
Goofy
switching
little
between
floofball.
California and Oklahoma and was living with her mother and her grandmother. They first met in person when Casey and his mother went out to California to visit some family, and while they were there, they met up with Amber. Everything went well, and they continued to date long distance. A while after, Amber was going to visit Casey and his mom for what was supposed to be a month-long trip to go to an anime convention, but that very quickly turned into Amber living there permanently. Apparently, while at Casey's home on this trip, Amber called her mother and she informed her that Amber would not be allowed to come back home to live with her and her grandmother.
Find
Amber was incredibly distraught.
Amberlyn Reed like this bizarre yet fascinating kind of case study. She's definitely got some kind of mental health issues. You don't get to the size that Amberlyn Reed is at without some serious unaddressed mental health issues. Right? Of course. Why, hello. You are purring so much and so loudly. Hi. Look at this. Look at this goofy cat. You're goofy. You're a goofy little boy. Look at him just rubbing his face all over. You're silly.
And did not know what to do, and Casey convinced his mother to let Amber stay with them in their studio apartment. From this point forward, both accounts of their relationships are different, but they have prevalent themes of toxicity and violence. Both talk about instances of physical and mental abuse. Throughout their relationship, Amber contacted numerous women online and talked to them. One person who came up in Casey's recount was a person named Paige, who Amber talked to and met online. That person slowly phased out, and then Amber suddenly met Crystal online. According to Casey, Amber and Crystal talked online for more than 7 months before their relationship ended. Throughout this time, Amber and Crystal would frequently talk on the phone. Crystal gifted Amber gift cards and money, and eventually gifted her an iPod Touch. Casey and Amber eventually broke up when Casey was 18, so that puts the relationship at about 3 years. Amber moves out and then moved in with Crystal and her family. And that was pretty much it for 3 years. The two did not talk, they didn't message, they didn't do anything of the sort. They chatted very briefly, and then the two kept it pushing. They left it at that, and they never really reconnected further. Until 3 years after that point, so 6 years after the end of their relationship, Amber
You're
posted
sliding
a
off.
video in an abusive relationship.
Oh my God.
I was raped. Which, for timing for anybody, was during the Destiny era while she was already living with Destiny. Throughout this video, she continuously misgenders Casey. Amber justifies using his dead name because she's like,
well, he's not here anymore. The person I knew doesn't exist.
Which is BS. And then she's like,
transgender talk is too confusing for me, so we're like, gonna leave it at that.
Transgender talk is too confusing, so we're just gonna leave it as that.
That makes no sense. For all of you people in the back, again, do you want to be Amber? I don't think so. In the video, Amber talks about previous experiences with domestic violence as a child. She then recounts her relationship with Casey as
He's
very
clutching
violent
onto my knee.
from the side of Casey towards Amber. Amber talks about specific instances that happened
the candy was
between the
very
two
sticky. Can I
when
get to my...
Casey was
I want my
Amber,
bag
and then she
because it's got my
instances as a child when her brother was violent towards her. A lot of people point to the juxtaposition
there's
of
where my water bottle went.
Amber is talking about Casey as well as talking about her brother when she was younger.
Why won't you take that to the kitchen for me?
Honestly, there is a big difference. When Amber is talking about her brother, there is emotion evoked. Her body has some sort of reaction, and the way she holds herself is completely different.
You mean you don't like the smell of my hand sanitizer?
Stoic and says it more in like a story time like fashion. When she is referencing Casey in this video, she often is looking to the side, is very aloof, takes moments to process her thoughts, and says that
I'm gonna
it's
take
been
this
a
to the
long time,
kitchen.
so memories are fading and she might not remember exactly.
I want to say this happened. It's been like 6-7 years, so memories are kind of like fading here, man.
However, that is not the way she talks about instances with her brother, and that happened significantly further in the past. Her tone was generally off throughout the video and left a lot of people wondering. Again, she confirms that she met Crystal online while her and Casey were dating, and then moved in with Crystal afterwards. She pretty much ends the video saying that Casey
that produces like
he did to her, and that
no significant amount of light, does it?
She gives us a thank you all for watching, everybody. Hope you enjoyed this video.
I just figured I'd share this with you guys, and I hope you guys enjoyed this video.
I also want to mention that this first video people were skeptical about, but people did not automatically write off what she was saying. It was her actions following this point that made people question what was happening. People were skeptical about the video.
I'm not sure what this nope is about. Emerald.
It came off like a my ex did blah 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 story time, which for 2016 was pretty on point for that time. And honestly, that's how I feel Amber looked at all of this, was that this was a story time, and that's all that it was going to be. But oh boy, it was not. The video blew up and it caught on. But what I don't think Amber expected was somebody in Casey's life to show him the video. And very shortly after Amber uploaded her video, Casey uploaded a video about their relationship from his perspective. He virtually rebutted everything Amber said in her video, which is clearly not feeling bad, which Amber said in her previous video, because Casey recounts the relationship entirely differently. In the instances where Amber said that Casey...
Oh, about the light. Yeah.
Casey turns around and says,
there's like
no, it was not him that
practical
was
amount of...
Amber,
I don't know why, but the
the
Streamlabs app
he talked about
that I'm using to circumvent YouTube's little restrictions on streaming from my phone it doesn't recognize that my phone has a front-facing flash for the camera feature on it, and so because it doesn't recognize that I've got a front-facing flash on there, it won't let me use it for light. I'll just leave it right there rather than stick it in the trash bag just yet. Yeah, that's no practical amount of light. So yeah, I'm gonna, like, if anybody has any recommendations on a different app to use, that would be great. I'm going to try a different one, hopefully. That completely sucks. Yeah, I don't know why it doesn't recognize that I've got a front-facing flash on the front-facing camera. But yeah, like, I'm gonna, this weekend I'm gonna, I plan on, trying to see if I can find a different app that will work with it, so. But hopefully I can soon, like, you know, have over 1,000 subscribers again soon, and that way I don't have to deal with a third-party app to do this. That would be nice.
Very tense between the three, and how some of the experiences that Amber said happened, specifically regarding a glass ashtray thrown at Amber, never happened at all. He also talked about an instance when he tried to come out to Amber, and Amber did not want to hear it, she was not listening, and she did not understand. So people are confused. Now there's 2 videos up, people don't know what to believe, and both videos are telling completely different sides of a story. Casey comes out with a You Now broadcast with his mother, where she explicitly recounts everything that happened and how she felt about everything in Amber's video. Then Amber deletes her video. She backtracks. Comments from Amber's Facebook start to surface from when her and Casey were dating, and they're pretty yikes. I got these screenshots from Michael B. Petty's first YouTube video ever, which was fun to rewatch. Amber made these comments about Casey while they were dating. My girlfriend sure can annoy me to death. She is so fucking annoying. I just want to slap her. Maybe even punch her. She thinks she runs the world, but trust me, she don't run shit besides her damn mouth. Confession number 1.
Oh, wow.
I have a girlfriend, but I'm in love with someone else. And that is only the tip of the iceberg of Facebook comments from Casey and Amber's relationship. Amber's Facebook is just riddled with disgusting comments and posts. And then Casey shows a screenshot of a message that Amber sent him talking about wanting to be intimate with Destiny and then asking for advice about everything. He then talks about how Amber is continuously friend requesting his friends and his family members, and how it was just weird, and that he confronted Amber about it, and that she said that she just wanted to be close with people that she talked to in the past. So the video is deleted, things are backtracked, and these comments surface from their relationship, and Amber never addresses it on her YouTube channel. Like, ever. The video is deleted, and she never talks about it. I can't emphasize that to you enough. People ask her about this scenario often. It comes up in Q&As to this day. It is more than 3 years later, and people still ask about it, and she ignores it. She has distracted from the topic and talked about something completely different, and the only time I've seen her semi-address it was on a You Now stream, which again was from Michael B. Petty's first video, which was a clip from CXNT. And in the clip, she barely even addresses it. She's just like, I said everything that was 100% true, and then divulges and talks about why it's appropriate for her to misgender Casey and to use his dead name.
Very depressed because I opened up about something that was 100% 2016 that is, how long is this? Wait. 22 minutes and 29 seconds long. Talking about everything that Casey lied about when we first started dating, the things that I went through while being with her, more things.
They're all freaking out.
I'm sorry, when I was with her, I was with her. I was with her as a girl. So I'm talking about Casey, the girl that I was with. That's who she was. But they know her as Casey, so it's confusing. It's confusing. Trust me.
As of today, still, 3+ years later, Casey's video stands. The messages stand. The Facebook posts stand. But what doesn't stand is Amber's video. If you're wanting to defend yourself, why delete it and never address anything? Why distract from the topic by directly talking about why you're going to misgender somebody you dated? It doesn't make sense to me, and the only reason I can see for her focusing so intently on why she's allowed to misgender somebody is to distract from the actual topic at hand, which is, where did your video go? What are you talking about? What actually happened? Why are you never, ever, ever going to address this? Since all of this has happened, this is continuously referenced in the comments and in numerous places, and it has yet to be addressed and realistically will never be addressed. This is one of the main offenses that people have against Amber, and I feel is very high on people's lists. It's honestly one of, if not the top of my list. It's also worth mentioning that by the time that all of this came out, 6 years after Amber and Casey's relationship, we're already in the Destiny era, we're already doing all of that. People have been skeptical about what Amber has been saying because she was already
this is
caught in the use of
this is
standard
a
lies.
lace
She's been caught in lies at this point, and
square
people were very hesitant
for
to trust what she was
it's from a
saying.
vintage
So when
pattern
the video
that I
comes
made. It's
out
crocheted
and the
lace,
rebuttal video from
and
Casey comes out, Amber deletes it,
I'm,
messages are surfacing. People were very skeptical about everything that was being discussed on the way from Amber.
I'm planning to make several of these
This
to
is
make a
referenced as the
bedspread.
turning point for Amber. Like, people had like a little.
But I'm also thinking I
signal
might make
for
a
Amber,
few to make a
but then
table
after
runner
this,
for
people just
my
were like,
coffee
you're
table,
just not
but
a person.
like in
Following this, she just
in the
dug
colors that I
herself
want for
deeper
my coffee
and
table. I'm not
deeper
sure.
into drama and to controversy and to lies, and she just really could never keep up with them. I never understood her motive and intent by posting this video. Like, was this just supposed to be a fun, casual story time that you had, and you never thought Casey would see it, and you never thought it would ever make wind to Casey, and then you never thought that he would respond? Did she think that she could completely assassinate somebody's character and then never give them the space and the room to respond? I just think that she thought she was telling this fun story time, and that was it. It was going to be done. Nothing happened since then, and she was moving on from there. I don't think I'll ever understand Amber's intention by putting this out into the universe and then never choosing to address it. But that is it for the Amber and Casey era. The long-lasting legacy is really a turning point in Amber's YouTube career. When people are talking about false allegations, this is what they're referencing. Let me know what you think about everything that happened and how you felt about how Amber handled everything and what you think about everything just in general. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see all of you in the next video. Bye.
I went blind on purpose, but I don't feel it was a choice.
What?
Oh, hi, welcome back to my channel. So you guys are currently in bed with me, which not a lot of people can say because I am very innocent. The topic of today's video is actually something you guys have sent me.
Oh god, I forgot that I
recommend.
put a
So
Blair
you
White
articled
video
about
in
it,
the queue
asked me
here.
about it, you want me to do a video about it, and I have ghosted you. I have ignored you because the topic is just a lot. But it's okay because today your wish is my command, and we will be talking about the trans-abled community. Oh god, my soul decaying.
decided I'm not just gonna do Black Friday. I'm gonna do a Black Week. That sounds weird. So you get a whole week of all of my merch being 25% off. So if you've been eyeing merch but you feel like it's a little too expensive because it is high quality, now's your chance to get it at a discount. And also launching today, I have new merch. I have Christmas sweaters. How cute are these? How cool is it that we have Christmas sweaters?
It's
All the new merch
sweatshirts
is
with
out
prints on them.
this video. So is the discount. Use code WHITEXMAS. Get it? Wear white. Friday, but a Black Week. It all just sounds very weird. But now onto the video. I can hear you through the screen telling me to hurry the up. So let's go. So trans-abled. It is basically.
Hello.
We're just gonna read this article.
Why,
So this
hello,
article
Miss
says,
Phoebe.
Similar to transgender people.
Sweet little lady cat. Gives me little head bites.
Steamroll through that. Okay. The
Hi.
trans-abled feel one or more limbs or functions
Sweet
of
girl.
one's body does not belong to oneself.
Oh, I love you.
So basically, these people
You're pretty.
disable themselves. They will cut off their own limbs. They will blind themselves. They will disable themselves because they feel as though that is the life they should be living. You know, I can only imagine how terrible it is to either be born with or develop any sort of physical or mental disability. And then you have this segment of the population, which is very small. We're not acting like this is a voting block, people. But, you know, they're out there, and these people actually choose to disable themselves. I can only imagine how insulting that is to people who are actually disabled, not by choice. There is literally a woman who has blinded herself because she identifies as blind.
I went blind on purpose, but I don't feel it was a choice. I don't think I'm crazy. I think I have a disorder. I laid down on the sofa, dropped 2 drops into each eye. My eyes were screaming. I had some drain cleaner going down my cheek, burning my skin. In the moment, all I could think of was, I'm going blind. It's gonna be okay. I was so happy. I felt that this was who I was supposed to be.
And of course, as you would expect, Tumblr is somewhere where these people tend to congregate.
Oh,
I
God.
guess. This person says, my experience as a trans-abled. People have always been very rude to me about being trans-abled. It's not that hard to understand. I just think able-bodied people are privileged, and I've decided that I was way too privileged. So I decided to stop using my legs to remove ableism. Now, these are people who actually use wheelchairs.
Okay, if memory serves, I think one of these that
But they choose to not use that.
that Blair's reading has been confirmed fake, but
You know, I just
you know the whole like body integrity dysmorphic disorder is a thing that you
this
know.
little thing called humanity has definitely run its course. You know what I'm saying? I feel like we can cut it quits now and be cool with that. This is just Now let's talk about, is this similar to being a transgender? If you're new to this channel, hi, I'm a tranny. So my initial reaction to this would be that being transgender and transitioning and changing my body was actually to
Hey, Phoebe.
improve the functionality
Hold on,
of my
honey.
life,
Let me
improve
finish
my
the
quality of
thing.
life for which it did,
I'll
not
catch
take
you in a
away
second.
functionality or disable
Hold on.
myself. So it's actually
Hold on,
going in
hold
the
on.
opposite direction. So that, in my mind, is a huge difference. What's interesting is there actually is a medical condition, I'm calling Dr. Google for this one, called body integrity dysphoria. Now, if you know, transgender people are diagnosed with gender dysphoria. So it's different. It's still being uncomfortable with your body, but in a different sort of a sense. So, you know, we do also get surgery to change ourselves when you're a transgender, but you do it through a doctor, not in, you know, your bathroom pouring bleach in your eyes,
Hello.
which I kind of want to do after seeing all this stuff.
Yes, we
And
do.
if you get rid of
Hi.
something, you replace it with something that functions. You don't just cut off a limb. Like, okay. Also referred to as body integrity identity disorder, amputee identity disorder, and xenomelia. Girl, she can't say that. It's a disorder characterized by a desire to be
Phoebe.
disabled or discomfort
Oh.
with being able-bodied beginning in early adolescence and resulting in harmful consequences. People with this condition may refer to
Hey,
themselves
sweet
as
girl.
transabled. So it's interesting that this,
Oh, I love
according
ya.
to this,
You're
it
so
actually occurs in
pretty.
childhood similar to gender
Yeah.
dysphoria. I had never even heard of this. I thought these people were just flat out crazy. I didn't know that there was like
Hi.
you know, a condition
Hey, girl.
associated with this. And
Hi.
actually,
I love you.
is
Oh,
a bit
you're
of
so
a,
pretty.
sad thing to think
Yeah.
about if you're
Oh,
born with
little
this.
Miss
And one thing
Phoebe
that's
here.
also really fascinating
Oh,
is that
we
these
love
people
Phoebe.
can actually still get disability money. So
Hi.
I mean, I'm not going to sit here and act like all my tax money is going to people who cut off their legs and have to suddenly pay for that. But like, you know, these people can become disabled because of their own choosing and then still get government money to like take care of them. So I don't know. That is something that also is worth saying. So here's a woman who actually, you know, didn't actually do anything to harm herself. She is fully able to walk, fully able to use her legs, but chooses to live as a disabled person, as trans-able.
You're being
So like, she
pushy.
has her legs.
You're
She's
being
not
pushy,
harmed in
Miss
any way,
Lady.
She just lives in a wheelchair. And I actually saw this in SJW. I made a video about like at the beginning of the year. So this woman's name is actually Chloe White. We're gonna hope she's not related to me. I don't really want to be from that particular gene pool. She actually wears leg braces to give herself a paraplegic feel. How insulting if you're really a paraplegic. Like, I kind of want to fight her. And claims that she's dreamed of this since she was a child. When she was only 9 years old, White rode her bicycle off of a stage that she had set up in a park with the sole intention of breaking her back and becoming paralyzed. It didn't work, and she realized that she could have been paralyzed from the neck down, which was not her intent. White only wishes to be paralyzed from the waist down. Jesus, can you come back now? Now will be a good time. So I had actually heard of this trans-able thing, and you hear of things like, you know, trans species, and I identify as a cat, I identify as a wall girl. Some of y'all are as boring as walls. And honestly, I used to get a little bit insulted when I would have people ask, like, what do you think about these? You know, like, is this similar to how you know, transitioned and you're transgender and all of that? And like, I used to be like,
sweet
no,
little lady.
I'm not the same as someone pouring bleach in my eyes. Like, I'm not the same as identifying as a wall. I'm a functioning, you know, normal citizen. I don't really get insulted by it anymore. For me now, it's more of just like, okay, I'm just gonna don't know, and that's fine. We can talk about it.
Sweet
Trans
lady.
species, so hoes that identify as cats.
Oh, God.
On a real note, I often find that to just be silly, and I don't think anyone who actually says that
Sweet girl.
really believes that. I think that a lot of people go on television and want attention for saying that. It's a very easy little news segment, like, this crazy girl identifies as a cat.
Sweet girl.
I think that that's what that is. There's no, you know, real diagnosis to be had. Unlike being transgender and even trans-able, there is technically a diagnosis. There is not one for being trans species, so y'all are just crazy. Transracial, this one's interesting because you have people like Rachel Dolezal, and actually just Rachel Dolezal, it's literally one woman, who identifies as black despite being white. Now again, there is no medical or neurological diagnosis to go along with that. Like you have with transgender, you have gender dysphoria. It's measurable, it is scientific, it is observable. The other thing is that transgender has existed since the beginning of, like, you know, forever. Like, you can see it in ancient texts, and it goes all around the world from countries that never spoke to each other. It's
Honey,
been a
I
thing.
dropped a
So I'm not
stitch.
sitting here trying to
I
like,
dropped
validate
it.
being transgender in the sense of,
I
like, it's more
dropped it,
real
Miss
than the rest.
Phoebe.
Like, anyone can feel any kind of way,
Oh,
but
I know.
I will just say that there is a historical, medical, and neurological
Oh, we got
context to
some
being
pretty
transgender.
girl
And with these other
here.
things, not really. Except
She's
for
so
being trans-able,
beautiful.
very established. That's a whole other level of, like. Let me know what you guys think. I'm so interested to hear the comments on this video. Girl. Subscribe to this channel if you haven't. I know a lot of you, I look at my analytics. I know a lot of you guys watch every single video, but you don't subscribe. Can you just subscribe? It would make me so happy. I love you forever. We can be best friends. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram. That is where you get the most updates from me. I post every single day on Instagram especially. I love you guys. I'll see you in the next video, which will be very, very soon. Bye, guys.
Thank you.
We just wanted to say thank you so much for watching this show this year. We've had a lot of fun. We robocalled the FCC. We baked the world's largest marble cake to spite the leader of Turkmenistan. We climbed a fake Mount Everest to show why climbing the real one is a bad idea. And we did an elaborate musical to tell a coal tycoon to eat shit. We haven't actually heard from Bob Murray yet, but I'm sure he loved it. We also got obsessed with a Japanese mascot called Cheetah. You may remember that Cheetah was the hyper-violent unofficial otter for the Japanese city of Susaki, and also the star of videos like this Exactly, that broke our hearts. So we did something uncharacteristically sweet for us, and we created our own replacement mascot, Chijon, a nearsighted otter. We actually sent him to Japan to find Shinjo-kun. I will admit he came on a little strong at first, but eventually they became great friends and have been living in Susaki together ever since. The whole saga was heartwarming, wholesome, and basically the exact opposite of what it feels like being alive right now. And I've actually been thinking a lot about these two lately, because next year, let's face it, it is going to be unpleasant. It is a presidential election year, so things are going to get even more toxic than they already are. And lately, I found myself often craving for these two's a particular brand of unmitigated joy. So I recently tried to get in touch with them, and here's what happened.
Hi. Phoebe's on the other side, tapping me on the elbow to pat her some.
It had been a rough year, and Heejon was very sad. He missed his friends, who lived very far away, so he decided to write them a letter. He wound up and threw it as far as he could. On a distant shore, Chijon and Shinjo-kun sat by the river. The tide was about to change.
Dear friends,
The letter said.
I wanted to call you, but I have AT&T, so this seemed like a more reliable option. It's been an exhausting year, and next year is looking worse. I wish we could see each other. Heejon.
Reading the letter broke their otter hearts. It was so sad. Heejon had AT&T. Suddenly, Chijon had an idea. Chijon and Shinjo-kun packed everything they'd need for a long journey, and borrowed a snack, or two. On the way to the airport, they said goodbye to all the local fish. "We're dead," replied the local fish, "but good luck." Chijon and Shinjo-kun were so excited for their 13-hour flight, although the same could not be said of everyone. Stuck between two giant otters, yet again. At last, America. Right away, they had trouble fitting in. They took what they assumed was the subway, and soon they were in the heart of New York, America's Susaki. But no one there seemed to recognize Heejon. "Are you sure he has a television show?" asked Shinjo-kun. They found a club for comedy. Maybe Heejon was a member. "That man looks just like him. It must be his adult son."
Hey, Miss Phoebe.
Emboldened by his 2 drinks, Chijon tried comedy himself. Chijon killed. Local fish really do be like that. Someone heard they had been looking for TV's best late-night host and told them where to find him. They had come to the right place, but this wasn't Heejon. It couldn't be. This man was funny, charming, and handsome. "Very handsome," said Shinjo-kun. "Heejon couldn't be here because Heejon was sad. How could anyone be sad at a place like NBC? Come on," Chijon said. "Heejon needs us." But they started to worry that they would never find him. They sat down a moment to rest, and a local artist captured their sadness. Chijon and Shinjo-kun didn't recognize themselves. Then again, whoever really does in the eyes of others. Chijon and Shinjo-kun had reached the end of the city. There was nowhere left to look. Their hope dwindled with the daylight. The tide hadn't changed the way they wished. But that's the funny thing about tides. They might not change when you want them to, but they never stay the same. was Susaki who saw him. It was a good surprise. Hijon hadn't realized surprises could be good anymore. For the first time in a long time, Hijon dared to hope. Soon it will be a new day, Hijon said. Where we're from, Hijon replied. It already is.
So my objectivist journey, I don't know how this video is going to turn out. I don't have notes or anything. Partner was just like, make a video talking about objectivist stuff. He's been telling me to do this forever, and I don't want to do it because I don't know really what to say, but hopefully if I talk enough, I'll figure it out. Go on the journey with me. Honestly, the whole thing is nothing new, really. I think a lot of people have had this experience. It's kind of a trope at this point, I guess. You know, the kid, usually a male, you know, teenager, reads The Fountainhead or Atlas Shrugged and becomes enlightened, and, you know, now they know everything, and collectivism is the number one evil, and the government's bad, and all this kind of stuff, and then they grow up and they grow out of it, right? It's a fairly common thing. It's a joke at this point. So that was me around 15 or so. I read Anthem. I think I read it for school, actually. Kind of sad. I mean, that book's not terrible, but it's not great either. She was not a good writer. Anyway, so I read that, and then I read The Fountainhead, and just absolutely fell in love with it, like a lot of teens do. A lot of hard-headed, I think, really is what it comes down to, and just kind of full of ourselves, and we think we know everything, and very much like individualistic, you know, we do things on our own and we don't need anybody else, that sort of thing, which is definitely who I was, you know. And so that book definitely spoke to me because of that. And then I read Atlas Shrugged, and that kind of cemented everything for me. And then I started reading more of her philosophical work, right? The Lexicon and a bunch of her other writings. And before you knew it, I was an objectivist talking about the evils of collectivism and altruism. I'm no huge fan of Christopher Hitchens, but I think he had one of the best comebacks when he was asked about objectivism, and he was like, look, I don't think humans need help being more selfish. He said it much better than that, but that was the basics. Like, you know, we don't need to tell people how to be selfish.
Oh god, she threw in a quote here. Though I have some respect for the virtue of selfishness, I don't think there's any need to have essays advocating selfishness among human beings. I don't know what your impression has been, but some things require no further reinforcement.
Selfish, or to be proud of being selfish. Like, this shouldn't even have to be said. But of course it's appealing to a lot of us. We don't realize until we grow up and honestly have more experiences. I don't think a lot of people really logic their way out of objectivism because it's so clearly wrong that if you believe in it, it's not really a question of reason at that point. You like it because you like it, right? Because it feels right to you. I think for a lot of us, we have to have experiences that don't align with our prior experiences and really our privilege. I mean, there's a reason that really the vast majority of objectivists, really every single objectivist / libertarian I've ever met, and I've met quite a few, has been well off. You know, mostly men, and every single one has been, you know, either very comfortable or straight up rich, which makes total sense. You know, it's easy to be selfish. It's easy to be against a welfare state and to be against taxation and all of that stuff when you're doing great. You know, when you're a very privileged person. Yeah, when you've grown up and you haven't really had any trials. Look, you can be rich and have had really horrible things happen to you. You can have grown up well off and still have had terrible things happen to you, obviously. But there are people who grow up and they don't have enough food to eat. It's something that many of us have never, ever, ever experienced. Feeling actual hunger, feeling so hungry, and there's nothing to eat. I have no idea what that's like. And so it can become very easy for good people. I mean, pretty much every single objectivist / libertarian I've known has been a good person. I know the idea is that, oh, they're all racist and terrible, but that honestly has not been my experience. Of course, I don't know what is actually in someone's heart, maybe deep down they actually are, but I think so much of it is coming from a place of just not understanding and not having experienced true poverty and true hardship that is totally outside of your control. Not having a serious disability or a serious mental illness. There are tons of people in this country who cannot function in society because of their brain. They just can't hold down a job. And so as an objectivist, you're saying that, well, sucks to be you. I'm kind of getting ahead of myself. This is why I moved away from objectivism, but I just wanted to say that I do think that a lot of it comes from just this lack of experience, and I think a lot of people, that's why they end up moving away, is they meet people who clearly are not being lazy. They're clearly not just taking advantage of other people or anything like that. They're just struggling. They just didn't have the leg up that I had and that so many other people had, and that's ultimately why we end up going, okay, I was really, really wrong. Let's pretend that never happened. But yeah, I was an objectivist for years. I went to, meetings almost every single month. I would go to a meeting, and it was really nice, it was really fun, but slowly but surely I started to move away from it because honestly, a big part was veganism, because I became vegan, I guess it was a few years after I became an objectivist, when I did actually embrace animal ethics and animal rights. That just doesn't fit into objectivism. It just doesn't. There's no place for animals in objectivism. Someone told me that I could be totally wrong about this, but I remember someone telling me that she actually had a big problem because she loved animals. I think she had peacocks too or something, and that was something that she kind of agonized over, that there was no place for animals in her philosophy. And instead of going, hey, maybe my philosophy is absolute shit, it was like, well, oh well. So that was a big thing for me, is that just never went away. There was no solution. And realizing, number one, what a huge role genetics play in our intelligence and really everything about who we are. It's a huge, huge factor, and it's something that is totally out of our control. Growing up with parents who maybe don't support you, growing up totally, totally poor, you can't help but realize that, man, I had a huge leg up. I always had supportive parents. Again, I never had to worry about food or anything like that. When I wanted to start my own pet sitting business, I mean, it didn't cost anything. I didn't ask my parents for money, but they were like, yeah, sure. They always encouraged me to go out and do my own thing. When I started the YouTube channel, they wanted me to do it. They were like, yeah, do it. I lived at home for a long time. I did not move out until my mid-20s. Most people don't have that opportunity, my parents were like, yeah, whatever, we love this because you have an opportunity to really figure out what you want to do, and that's great. And without that, I wouldn't have this channel. I wouldn't be doing this. Again, I know this video is all over the place, but that was kind of my journey. It was all over the place. I would go back and forth because I did feel like an objectivist in terms of having my immediate judgment of people for a long time was just oh, well, you're not trying and you're lazy and victim mentality, that sort of thing. That's how I felt for a long time, and it was hard to get out of that because, again, that was pre-objectivism. Even if I didn't use victim mentality or anything like that, I didn't really know how to express it. That's how I felt about a lot of people. It was incredibly judgmental, and objectivism just totally played into that, right? And just played into my own, boosting my ego even more than it already was, and kind of justifying everything for me. So it was really hard to admit that I was just wrong about everything, just every single thing. So of course it took a long time. And I think maybe this is why I'm more forgiving when it comes to veganism and people not being vegan, because eating meat is a huge part of a lot of people's identity. It's hard to move away from it, and it's hard to admit that people in your life who you love are doing something so horrible. You know, objectivism is very dogmatic, right? There are rules, and they are the rule in every single case. It's a lot easier to follow as an ethical system to just say, well, these are the rules, and they're the rules in every single case, period. You don't have to think about anything. Context doesn't matter. You know, it's a lot easier. It's like diets, right? Following one specific diet, and these are the rules all the time, period. It's a lot easier than saying eat in moderation, and there's nuance because some people have allergies, or some people do better on low carbs, some people do better on low fat. That sucks, man. Nuance sucks, right? The gray stuff sucks. It's a lot easier if things were just black and white, right? If we really just had good people and bad people, if we really just had cartoon villains who were so obviously evil, fight the evil guys, get rid of them. Cool, everyone's good now. Peace forever. I think that's the other part of just getting older, and it's why people tend to move away from objectivism, because you get older and you realize that, wow, there's just a lot of gray. There's a lot of gray in this world. It is mostly gray with very little black and white, clear-cut things. I mean, it's a lot of what I do on this channel. You know, obviously I advocate for veganism, but I like talking about the nuance, you know, the gray stuff, like don't eat animals, but what about roadkill? You know, don't eat eggs, but what if you have a backyard chicken that you take care of? I'm a much different person. I hated all of that stuff. I used to hate that stuff. I hated what if questions. They were the absolute worst. Now, I love what if questions. They are so useful in terms of ethics, in terms of, you know, making sure that you're being consistent, helping you actually think through problems. I guess the final thing I'll say, the other thing that can make objectivism so appealing and moving away from it so hard is that it gives you license to be a good person without really doing anything. I mean, to be fair, I think most of us see ourselves as good even if we don't really do anything, right? Like, as long as you don't murder people or like rape anybody, you're a good person, right? Which is kind of a low bar to clear. But objectivism takes that even further. You know, most people don't view their selfish acts as good. We may try to, you know, convince ourselves that we didn't really do it or justify it or something, but we know it's not good. Whereas objectivism is like, no, you're good for doing that. You know, as long as it's not infringing on anyone else's rights, you're totally in the right. You don't have to go out of your way to help other people. That's not important. If you want to do that, okay, fine, whatever, but don't feel like you have to, which is great. It's really satisfying, you know, because you can just live your life like most of us do without, you know, really harming other people or trying to harm them, and you're automatically a good person. And you don't have to view people who go out of their way to, you know, give money or spending time volunteering. They're not really any better than you. It's very, very, very appealing, and moving away from it means that you have to acknowledge that, yeah, there are a lot of people who are much better than you, who spend their money on other people, who spend their time on other people, and other people not just being their children and their family members, but people they don't even know. Those people are amazing. Those people are better than you. It's a hard thing for people who are egotistical but who aren't like sociopaths, you know, which is a lot of people. There are very few sociopaths, but there are a lot of people, I think, who are very full of themselves but who want to be good people and believe that they are good people. And so objectivism is very appealing because no one wants to do anything, you know. We don't want to have to take the time to think about our actions or think about other people we don't even know and how to help them, and to think about the big problems in the world. It's hard, and no one wants to admit that they're doing things that are wrong and are really, really harmful. Again, it's the same with veganism. No one wants to admit that, wow, I've been eating meat, you know, and milk and eggs 3 times, 4 times a day for my entire life. Holy crap, I don't How many animals is that? How much suffering is that? I guess that's it. I hope you guys enjoyed this. Subscribe, support the channel, patreon.com/unnaturalvegan, and I'll have a video hopefully soon. I would love to hear, I don't know if I'm going to read the comments. Sometimes I read comments on videos, sometimes I don't. Usually I just use the Creator Studio and I'll scroll down randomly and see like the top, or what they do. They show like the 3 most recent comments. So it'll be, sometimes it's a comment on a video that I posted like 3 years ago. It's kind of fun because I don't know like what I'm going to get, you know, I don't know what's going to show up there, but yeah, there's just too many comments to read. It takes a lot of time, and then sometimes it's like, I feel like I need to respond, and it's like it's not a good use of my time. I hate to say that, but you know, I need to focus on like videos and getting videos out for you guys. You know, I hate that the last few months I've been getting out like 4 videos a month or something. I hate that. That's not a lot of videos. I think the quality on all of them has been good, but some of the stuff is just taking me so long, and it's like, is it worth it? Like, was the video really, you know, I don't know. Anyway, I don't know what I'm talking about. Point is, yeah, trying to spend my time on the most productive, useful things. You know what I mean? But, yeah, what I was going to say is, if any of you guys have an objectivist journey story, that would be cool to kind of share in the comments. I'll try to remember to read them to see if it's similar. It's probably pretty similar, I would guess. And let's see, Thanksgiving is like next week, so I just recorded 2 other things. So this might be the last video, assuming I actually upload this. This might be the last video that you guys see from me before Thanksgiving. So I hope you have a good Thanksgiving if you celebrate it. I mean, I don't, you know, I make food and stuff, but we don't, I mean, Thanksgiving's awful, right? What it represents is terrible, but my kid is real excited about watching the parade, so I guess we're watching the awful Macy's Day Parade that's all just miracles and singing and stuff, and I hate it. Oh, someone's calling. Oh, it's my partner. I feel like it used to be more about the floats. I could just be making that up, you know, it's like, it was back in my day, the parade was awesome, and it was all about floats, and man, I totally did not commit to that old person voice at all. That was just sad. I feel like the last few years it's just all about these like little performances. It's fine, but I'm here for the floats, man. I want to see a giant ass Pikachu. Where's the Pikachu?
God, these fucking jeans, man. Hey guys, what's up and welcome back to my channel. So this is part 2 of my issues with the beauty community. The reason I put petty in the title is because most of these issues are petty, but some of them are less, and I still want to include them because I didn't touch on them in the first video. Also, apologies if I have to look down, but again, I made notes this time on my phone so I can actually remember everything. If I put a picture on a screen of an influencer, I'm not doing it to be shady as much as that's literally just the first person I thought. Hello, it's me from another day because the audio stopped recording the 23 minutes that came after. We love that for me. So today's video has a few chapters. The first chapter is the few represent the many. The second is shadiness, the third is disorganization, the fourth is relatability, and the fifth is manipulation. This point was actually made to me by someone who does makeup, and they will be linked down below as well, but they did voice to me that the few represent the many, right? So this goes for a number of communities. I'd say the majority of communities. And when I say the few represent the many, I mean that when I talk about the beauty community, I talk about the people who could be considered at the top of the community, such as Jeffree Star, James Charles, the people we constantly hear about, right? So when I talk about the beauty community, I'm talking about them. When I say the beauty community, I'm really talking about the people we hear about all the time of being in drama. I'm not talking about separate artists who really are there for the artistry, but nonetheless it can give them a bad name because the beauty community has kind of a stigma to it now where it's equated to a drama community in some ways because there's always some shit going on between the beauty gurus that we constantly hear about. And that is an issue in its own way because then some artists who really are just there for the artistry don't feel like they're part of the community because they're not these millionaires who are in drama all the time. They're just people who like makeup, which is really what the makeup community should be about, the beauty community. So there's a feeling of almost disconnect between some of the smaller creators and these big creators, just because it seems like maybe the priorities are not in the right place with the big creators. But I mean, that's up to you to decide.
Another point they made that I forgot to mention is also that people base their understanding of the beauty community based on, like I said, the top players. So they think that a lot of the smaller creators have kind of the same perks, like they'll assume that they receive PR, they'll assume that they have these healthy relationships with brands, when in reality, I was told that sometimes brands ghost once they get what they want. Say they want to send you PR and you post what you get, then they kind of just go MIA. And a lot of people don't get PR, and PR lists are actually hard to get onto. But since we see these top creators who just kind of show it as if it's an everyday thing, then people are like, oh, everyone gets PR. And this is valid for myself as well. I'm not a beauty person, but people tend to think I know a lot of YouTube people, which I don't. I'm on a speaking basis with very few YouTubers. Like, there is a very small sense of community, in my opinion, and that's also kind of what I got from the creator I spoke to.
But I do think this problem is particular to the beauty community in certain ways, because of course every community has its shitty people, but I feel like the beauty community at this point is known for its toxicity in a lot of ways, and I can understand why an artist would hate that, because it's like when I hated when the outside world kind of painted Jake Paul as every YouTuber. I don't want to be associated with Jake Paul. I have nothing in common with him except for the fact that we're both breathing and we're on this platform. That's it. But I wouldn't ever want to be painted like someone who's associated with him, if that makes sense. So I can understand why smaller artists or even bigger artists just don't want to be associated with the community because of its image. So I've heard from quite a few beauty creators, there are shit-talking group chats. Now, shit-talking is something that I think everyone does, whether they admit it or not. The difference is, if you're shit-talking with your friends and you're venting, that's a little bit different because your friends know who you are and they know your intention is likely to just vent so you can get something off your chest and then you move on, right? However, a lot of these group chats apparently are with other influencers that pretty much just follow each other, so they don't necessarily know each other, they're not necessarily that close, but they might shit talk other influencers. So it's essentially colleagues talking shit about other colleagues. This probably isn't exclusive to just the beauty community, but that's what we're focusing on here, especially because I do feel like a lot of people within the community tear each other down. So there's definitely a lot of shadiness going on in those group chats, and it kind of fuels a certain level of toxicity because it's like all these people talking shit and kind of egging each other on to continue talking shit. You don't know what their intentions are, and at some point it's just dumb because anyone in the group chat could just screenshot it and leak it or send it to the person you're talking about, you know? So it just seems dumb from even a business perspective where you might get outed for the shit you talk. So morally, it's obviously wrong, but even just from a business point stance, you're screwing yourself over. Aside from that, with shadiness, we also have cancel culture versus accountability. So the difference between cancel culture and accountability, for me, is that accountability indicates that there is a possibility for betterment and potentially, depending on your opinion, redemption. Cancel culture, on the other hand, pretty much turns it very black and white, where it's like, this person fucked up, that's the end, they can never be forgiven, they can never grow from this, nothing good can really come of it. And of course, there are some things that maybe are unforgivable to you and me, so I'm not saying everyone has to be forgiven, but I'm just saying there should be an option to work on yourself and for people to make steps in a positive direction. However, in the beauty community, it's like when anything happens, people are screaming like, is this person canceled? Is this person done forever? And I just don't really like that. It's one thing to call someone out for fucking up and asking them to rectify their wrongs or apologize for what they did, and it's a complete other thing to essentially say that they will never ever be better and that they're not even worth living. Like, some of these people get death threats over things that, in my opinion, are pretty minute. Then we have brand owners who act unprofessionally. The brands that come to mind here are Juga's Place, Jeffree Star, and Jaclyn Hill. Now, especially for Jaclyn Hill and Jeffree Star, they are brand owners, so they have to act professionally in terms of their business, in terms of not clapping back to people on Twitter, because at the end of the day, yes, you're a human, but you're also the CEO of your company, so the way in which you address people is, in a way, representative of your brand. So if I launched a brand and someone told me, you know, hey, I didn't get my t-shirt and please let me know what I can do, and if I respond in a sassy or just overall inappropriate way, that reflects not only on me but on my brand. So there's a certain type of standard you have to keep, but I feel like because they're on social media, these people kind of feel like it's okay to be unprofessional. In a way, I can understand, because if people are harassing you, you want to respond, but at the same time, you have to think like a brand owner. So for example, Jaclyn Hill kind of going essentially MIA after Lipstick Gate, that doesn't reflect well on her brand, because even though she must have been under crazy amounts of stress, I can't imagine, it's also like your brand still exists. Like, it's not just you disappearing, it's you with your brand. So you can't just up and leave. And this also applies to Juvia's Place when they were calling people out. I think it was on their Instagram and going on these rants. And it's like, this is not appropriate. This actually leads to my next point in the shadiness section: perpetual drama. Because certain people don't act professionally, and because people are so obsessed with canceling other people, there's always some shit going on. There is no slow day in the beauty community, mainly because people will take really small things and blow them out of proportion. Like, I see drama being made out of things that don't need to be drama. Example: if I were a beauty creator and I had a problem with another beauty creator, the ideal thing would be for me to message them privately, we have a conversation, and then we try to squash it, or at least have a conversation and clarify. Ideally, that's what would happen. The world we're in now is more like, I'm gonna post a public tweet and at them, or not at them, and let people guess. And then people will start guessing, they'll start tagging who they think it is, then the person who maybe it's about will respond in another public tweet, and it's just high school at that point. A lot of drama is easily avoidable, but it's like people might want it, you know, to generate clicks maybe because you're not as relevant as you used to be. Allegedly, just my opinion. This one is a little bit petty on my end, but this bothered the shit out of me, so I'm just gonna say it. The Norvina PR search on Twitter. So if you don't know, Norvina from Anastasia Beverly Hills did a PR search where essentially artists could show her pictures of their work and essentially give it a shot at getting Anastasia Beverly Hills PR. Now, I don't follow that many makeup artists on Twitter just because I prefer Instagram, no real big reason, and even I had my timeline absolutely swamped with people tagging Anastasia Beverly Hills and Norvina to be noticed, putting their looks under every single Norvina tweet. Like, it was madness. Like, I could not even see what my friends were tweeting because there was all this shit. Now, of course, I could unfollow, but I didn't. This to me came off as disorganized, because as much as I like social media and I think it's great in order to show your talent and maximize the people who see it, how hard would it have been for Norvina to set up a website where you can submit your work and then you can plug your social media, so that if they want to see more of your work, they can go to your social media. So you're still using social media and showing your portfolio via social media, but it's done in a more organized fashion. I feel like in that way it's also easier to keep tabs, you know, on who you've looked over and who you haven't. You know, if you have their full name and you can put them on a list, rather than if you're on Twitter, you know, with a handle, I think it's harder to remember, like, oh, did I already look at this handle or not? Especially when you have thousands of people reaching out to you in order to be noticed. I just thought that created a mess on the timeline, but aside from that, I feel like it created this cutthroat kind of like, I need to be noticed, fuck you, kind of like this competition that didn't necessarily seem extremely healthy to me, but that's just as an outsider. I wasn't on the inside of that, so who knows? And I'm all for smaller creators getting attention, but it's like, surely there was a better way to do it than via Twitter. Then, aside from that, this connects to a point that I'd made in my prior video, where I was saying that a lot of brands were just releasing a lot of products back to back, and specifically with Anastasia Beverly Hills, it felt disorganized because it felt like they didn't plan each palette to have its moment, you know? Like, ideally, you want a product to have its moment so you can hype up, then when it comes out, you can, like, show reviews and you can let it have its time, you know? With Anastasia Beverly Hills, and there are other brands that I could name, it just seemed like everything came out. Now, mind you, I know some shit was leaked, so some of it wasn't timely, but even with the Alyssa Edwards palette, then there was Jackie Aina and Carly Bible, I can't remember in what order, but I remember that I barely realized that the Alyssa Edwards palette came out, and I only knew because my friend told me. Other than that, I wouldn't even have known because I feel like there was so much being released that none of these had their own moment. It was just like, here's one palette, here's another one, and that seems disorganized to me because it's like, ideally, you'd want to kind of plan strategically based on how long you want to give each palette. Some people become successful and they lose their relatability and forget that their supporters got them there. Almost like a false sense of security of like, oh, I don't need anyone, I did this all by myself. And as much as, yes, the creators put in work, it's also like you need to remember that your subscribers, your followers, whatever it is, are the ones who got you there. But it seems like sometimes people take it a little bit too much for granted. Creators desperately try to stay relatable in the same way as they were before, even though realistically things have changed. Like, you're not the same person because now you're a millionaire and now you live in $1 million house and your life isn't the same, and that's fine. I personally am happy when the creators I enjoy are successful. I have no issue with that. I don't like when they pretend to be broke or pretend to have less money or pretend that their life hasn't changed, because some people stay relatable. I don't know what category Jenna Marbles would be in terms of community, but I feel like she's stayed relatable even with her massive success, right? But there are certain people who have changed, and that's not necessarily always a bad thing, but I think it's silly to pretend like no change has happened. Like, I know these are people who aren't necessarily in the beauty community, but I know a lot of people were coming for Emma Chamberlain because they said she changed. Honestly, I do think she changed, but I don't necessarily think it's for the worse. It's just like she's in a different place. She might have grown, you know? I don't really follow her content, but I know about what people are saying. And I know that a lot of people have this issue with Shane Dawson. Now, I guess he is part of the beauty community now. I don't want to go into my opinion because I don't think it's very popular, but anyway, a lot of people are bothered by the fact that Shane acts like he's poor, especially around Jeffree Star, like wearing his ripped shirts and stuff like that, and I know a lot of people are annoyed with it because it feels a little bit like a gimmick to be like, oh, I'm not rich, I'm just like you, and it's like, the reality is, we're happy for you, dude. We're happy that you have money. Let's just not pretend like that's not the truth, because then it just seems kind of disingenuous. Some creators have been in the crossfire because it seems like they only film videos at this point to sell things. So the irony is YouTubers kind of don't make YouTube videos anymore. There are a lot of larger beauty creators who essentially only come in and film videos when they're selling you something. So there are some people where it seems like the only reason they're filming the video is because maybe they have a new affiliate code with Morphe, maybe they're releasing their own palette, and they only really film when something is happening that would benefit them, if that makes sense. And mind you, it's normal to want to film about the launch of your product, but it might seem a little bit more calculated when that's pretty much the only times you film. I do think that is manipulative because the idea of YouTubers doing YouTube is because they're doing something they enjoy. So with the beauty YouTubers, they're doing their makeup because they enjoy doing their makeup, right? Ideally, when a YouTuber comes on screen to say, hey, I'm talking about this makeup brand, it's because they're excited and they want to share it with you. But when they time it in such a way where it seems like they're trying to sell you something, it just seems manipulative to me, just kind of like, oh, I'm making this content for you, but also not really because I'm making it because Morphe, right? Another aspect of manipulation comes in when creators don't want to take accountability for their actions. Now, we all know, we have all seen the beauty guru apologies where they essentially don't really apologize, but rather play the victim card, you know, great hoodie, no makeup, I'm in a dark place, whatever. And as much as I do believe that it it must be extremely overwhelming when you have a lot of people hating on you. It's kind of like when Lipstick Gate happened with Jaclyn Hill and her fuzzy lipsticks. She kind of went MIA and didn't really take accountability for a while, and maybe to this day, that's up to you to decide. It was manipulative in a certain way because she kept going on about how she had anxiety and how it was hard for her to film, or she was scared to film. And as much as I think these things are true, she probably did have anxiety, she probably was scared to film. I can not imagine what she dealt with. At the same time, if you fucked up and you have kind of yet to rectify your wrongdoing, saying that you're anxious and stuff like that seems like you're making people want to pity you rather than take accountability for what you did. And like I said, it's not mutually exclusive. It's not like you have to apologize or you have to have the feelings you have. You can have both, but the reality is, no matter what you're going through mentally, the situation is what the situation is. And as much as mental health issues are not your fault, they are your responsibility. So just because you're anxious or just because you're depressed or whatever else you have, that doesn't justify shitty behavior. You know, like, I'm depressed, I have a disorder. That doesn't justify any shitty actions on my behalf. I'm still doing the shitty actions, I'm still responsible, and I still have to apologize for them. I think with some creators, because they have depression, anxiety, whatever else, they try to make it like that's to blame when that's not really fair. So the bottom line is, having a mental illness does not excuse you from doing shitty things. Then the last point is the feigning of friendships. So it seems like there are some friendships that seem less genuine than others, and most of the time it seems manipulative because you start to wonder, are these people actually friends, or is this a business move? Is this a way to have crossover fans? Is this a way to have more people talking, right? Because we see this with, well, some people thought that that was the reason why Manny MUA was friends with Jeffree Star, because then he would get attention from being with Jeffree Star, and then that might gain him subscribers, that might gain him views, that might gain him some level of notoriety. That's just an example. In the end, we don't know what happens behind closed doors, but there are certain people who seem to be very strategic with who they're quote-unquote friends with. But the reality is, there's also a lot of fallout very often, and friends do fall out, but if it's always the same people who fall out with other people, you start to wonder, is this person toxic, or maybe is this person just using this to get clicks? It's manipulative because they're trying to convince you of a reality that might not even be the reality, and aside from that, it's also like, you can use a creator to better your image, you know, like, if you were in a scandal and then all of a sudden you're friends with a wholesome creator, does that help you? Probably. Or if you're not feeling like you're relevant as you were, if you befriend a creator who's in scandals all the time, would that get you attention? Yeah. So I do think that a lot of these beauty people really do make strategic choices as to who they're friends with. Anyways, guys, let me know what you think in the comments down below. Let me know if there are other issues that you think I should address. Thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you to my patrons as always, and let's get right into the fan art.
What's the point of a girl being in a relationship unless it's going to lead to marriage? Was this written by the transformed wife? Hello, and welcome back to my sofa, this time with a slightly closer microphone, so hopefully it won't be quite so echoey. It's probably still going to be echoey. Here comes the small beast. Hello. Today we are going to be talking about what I would call the female or women's equivalent to MGTOW. Now, my MGTOW video stirred up quite a bit of fuss from a lot of angry men, and I think
disclaimer that I thought was obvious, but apparently not. MGTOW itself isn't the problem. Choosing to date or not date people is not a problem. If you don't want to date women, that's fine. You don't have to. The problem I had with the MGTOW posts, and I've said this over and over again, was the fact that they grouped all women in as these evil, terrible creatures. They made dating and relationships out to be this like horrific game that you play with good guys and bad guys and villains and so on, and it was all very weird. So the other night I'm browsing Reddit and I find this subreddit called Female Dating Strategy, and from what I can gather, it's a bunch of single women sharing dating strategies, dating tips, relationship advice, which on the surface is absolutely fine, just like MGTOW. Men deciding not to date women, not a problem with it. Women sharing dating tips with other women, I can't even say women, not a problem with it. The issue I have is with the toxicity of the community that is created within these groups. Not all members of the Female Dating Strategy subreddit Reddit are going to be toxic or troublesome or have these problematic views, just like not all members of MGTOW are going to have these problematic views. But there are individuals that do. There are certain viewpoints put forth generalizing about an entire group of people, because that's what I'm saying the problem is. We're critiquing these specific views I'm going to be talking about today, not an entire group of people in general. You guys really love this monster in a wine glass thing, don't you? And I gotta say, I feel classy as hell right now. It was supposed to retail at like 100 and something quid. I picked it up for 30 quid on eBay a while back. Tell me that's not incredible. Love it. Anyway, the post I wanted to start with is one that I find quite interesting, because this is like the pinned post in the subreddit. This is meant to like summarize what the subreddit is all about, and they call it the FDS guide, the Female Dating Strategy Guide. Non-mainstream opinions and strategies held by this sub. It starts off in a really like friendly, approachable way. It's basically saying, you know, everyone who doesn't know what this is about, come join in the conversation, we want you. This is a helpful guide for the triggered scrotes and the pick-me's, whatever that is, that are gasp shocked when they realize the tactics that this sub advocates for. If you find you are not on the same page with us, this sub might not be for you. So already, you know, they're totally welcoming, totally open to opinions that don't quite fit with their... No, I'm joking. They're shutting it down right away. They're creating a little echo chamber. And again, that's part of what I have the problem with. FDSs believe that the man should pay for dates and should be responsible for significantly more than half of the expenses in the relationship. Was this written in the 1800s? Okay, maybe slight exaggeration there, but I don't get it. Like, what is wrong within a relationship? Just being equal, paying your way. Whoever earns more or has more money at the time can potentially pay a little bit more. It doesn't have to be a 50-50 split, but it has to be equal. That's how relationships should work. You know, it's not a man's job just because he was born with a penis. How do these people think same-sex relationships work? How do these people think relationships with non-binary people work? It's insane. FDSs believe that a woman should delay sex with a new guy for at least 6 weeks to 2 months, potentially even longer, for better chances at getting a relationship. Again, this was one of my big problems with MGTOW, and it's one of my big problems here. Both of them have very different approaches to sex, but both see it as something transactional, something to bargain with. It's insane. Sex is simply an activity that two people who are interested in each other do. I don't understand the people who like assign value to people based on the number of sexual partners they've had. I don't understand people who assign value to people based on when and if and how often and, you know, what they will do in terms of sex. It's bizarre. If it's consensual, if you're both enjoying it, what's the problem? They're making far too big of a deal out of it and making it something that people feel they should be so ashamed of or worried about or self-conscious about, or like, we can't do this, we can only do this, people are going to judge me if I... No. If it's two consenting adults, or more, if that's your thing, as long as all adult participants are consenting, it shouldn't matter. Sex is not a bargaining tool or, I don't know, something you exchange and have rules and it's so weird. And in the same vein, I find this next one incredibly weird, and I know a lot of you watching will do as well, because you brought up points like this before. FDSs do not support the sexual degradation of women under the guise of consensual BDSM. This this is so weird. Now, the BDSM community obviously isn't something that I personally know about, but it is something that a lot of my commenters and viewers have brought up time and time again. The fact that consensual BDSM is completely fine. You know, again, as long as all parties are aware of it and you have like safe words in place and so on, there's nothing wrong with it. It's not degrading if it's something you enjoy and agree to and ask for. A lot of my viewers and commenters, you guys have brought up in the past that you feel that the BDSM community is demonized in some way and is looked down upon as though you're doing something to devalue themselves. And, you know, I don't think that's okay. You guys don't think that's okay. But again, if you are one of these people, please let me know your thoughts down in the comments, because like I say, I can't speak from personal experience, only repeating back what you guys have told me, but I find it so bizarre. This feels like such an unhealthy relationship to sex in general. It's like they don't understand what it's for, and that sex is a healthy, natural part of relationships. Not necessarily romantic relationships either, just relationships with people. It's part of being human. It's part of being an animal. Again, this next one has huge echoes of MGTOW, in that it puts far too much emphasis on a person's sexual history. To me, it doesn't matter. I would find it so weird if I went on a date with someone and they tried to ask me like, oh, how many people have you been with? How many people have you done this with? Tell me everything. It's kind of weird. All you really need to know is a person free from STDs and stuff like that? Do they have any children? And are they willing to be monogamous with you if that's what you're interested in? And like faithful and stuff. That's kind of all you need to know. I don't understand this view that like people should ascribe worth to someone based on their sexual past. It is stupid. I've seen a lot of MGTOW guys say that apparently, oh well, if a woman slept with X number of people or more than this number of people, then they can't pair bond anymore. It's dodgy science. It's not true. There's a great book called The Ethical Slut that actually like goes into the research behind a lot of this and talks about how as humans we don't have like I guess like a limited amount of love and caring to give. It's not like a woman is born with X amount of love and stuff, and if she has too many penises put in her, that love is depleted and it's all gone and there's nothing left for you. That's not how it works. Not at all. It gives the example of how a woman who has multiple kids doesn't start loving her older kids any less because she has new kids. So a person who's had partners in the past, you know, it doesn't deplete her capacity to care for her current partner, that kind of thing. And the book explains it better than I ever could. I'm rambling a bit. You know, it's what I do. Anyway, the point is, I find this next point ridiculous because of that reason, but also because it's promoting lying and hiding things, and that just does not seem healthy in any kind of friendship, relationship, anything.
Hello.
FDSers do not
Hey, Nigel.
support being upfront about a woman's sexual past / sexual history.
My
No
love.
matter how many men you
You
slept
my
with in
sweet
the past,
boy.
your answer, whenever a new guy asks, should range
love.
from 3 to 5. Would point out that a guy even petty enough to ask
Nigel
in the
Pat.
first place is a red
Come here,
flag
my
on its
love.
own. Now the last point there,
I can put this
I don't know
away.
what I think of that, because on the one hand I'm like, yeah,
Oh,
I don't see
Nigel.
why it's necessary
Nigel.
to ask,
Oh
and
my
I think
gosh.
the guy did ask it on his first or second date. I feel
Oh,
like,
he's
why
a
do you
silly
need to
cat.
know? That's weird. You're being very kind of like personal. It doesn't affect you. You
Shit.
don't need to know why you're asking. I would think maybe it was a bit
Well,
controlling.
hello. Is Miss Phoebe
Jealousy.
back?
I don't know.
Come
Not always,
here.
just sometimes. But on the other hand, I'm like, yeah, okay. If
Come
you're in
here,
a
sweet
long-term
girl.
relationship, maybe some people do want to know about the past.
Hey,
and just like
oh,
share it
I
in a
love
gentle way,
Miss
just in a,
Phoebe.
hey, I want to know about
Hi.
it kind of way. Either way, I think if the conversation does come up, or actually,
Why
even
did
if it's a
Nigel
different
get down
conversation,
off the
doesn't matter what the
couch, huh?
conversation is, I don't think it's ever okay to like
Does Nigel just want
actively
my time with
lie
him
to
to
your
be just
partner
between
like
us?
that. It's really weird.
think so,
It's very
yeah.
manipulative.
Oh.
There's no point to it. And
He's
again,
a
it all
very
comes
good
back to
cat,
this
though,
weird
isn't he?
trend
Yes, and so are
of
you.
relating value with sex. It's odd and bizarre to me, and I don't like it. And the advice I would give is, screw this, be honest, and if a partner can't accept you for who you are, they're obviously not right for you. FDSs advocate for the woman putting herself first. You as a woman have
Okay,
infinite
so
value, and as such,
I don't know. I haven't really had much to
yes, you
say,
have inherent value, of
and
course you do, but the prize? You should
I reached a
work
point
to
with
earn your love,
the
respect, and
second
commitment,
square
and you have to
of
chase
lace
no
there
matter
where
what
I'm
habit.
just
The chasing
kind of
bit
like,
I get, and at some point you have to realize someone isn't interested in you if you constantly have to chase
I reached
them.
a good
I get that. But
point to stop. I really don't have much to say other than, oh, I started on earlier in the stream about, this fucking guy on the bus. Like, I could tell he probably thought I was a woman and was just saying stuff. I mean, he was probably drunk at the same time, but you know, so my face is on my phone, just like clearly not giving him attention. At some point, he stomps his feet, you know, because I'm in one of the aisle facing seats, you know, the ones that face toward the center walkway of the bus, because I tend to walk with a cane, and those seats are easier to get in and out of. And I usually just take one of the first available, like right near the front. And so this guy is just like sitting across from me, and at some point he just like stomps his feet, clearly trying to get my attention. Like not like, you know, like an aggressive stomp, just like like and yeah, as usual, when I can tell some drunk guy is most likely thinking I'm a woman, I pitched down my voice. I do this a lot on the bus, like in general. I can kind of relate to the whole concept that amongst the African American community about code switching, where there was an episode of Key and Peele that had a sketch about that, you know, on their show, where they kind of like switch to more aggressive kind of language when you know, like these two guys seeing each other on the phone, you know, on the phone talking to somebody, and you know they're talking, you know, fairly light-heartedly and casual, but then they see each other and they're just like, oh yeah, man, let me tell you what they're, and then you know they part ways, and Jordan Peele, he's you know, suddenly like walks into Mr. Pace and he's like, oh my god, I almost got robbed. And so I kind of do that in public a bit. I tend to be a bit more myself, I guess, like on YouTube videos, and you know, including live streams or at goth nights, or you know, occasionally when I feel bothered to go out to, you know, a gay club, because I just hate the music at gay clubs more than I hate it at goth night, or you know, what passes as such at Nectarine in downtown Ann Arbor. So then what happens is, you know, so a lot of times, like on the bus or whatever, you know, I end up like, you know, like pitching down my voice, just like, oh god, what are you doing? What do you want? And and then I just, like I said, he got to the point where he's just like kind of like, you know, like lightly but clearly stomping his feet, trying to get my attention, and I'm like, just like, what the fuck is your problem, dude? Do you harass every ferry boy you see on the bus like this? And I mean, yeah, I think nothing of potentially embarrassing guys who are acting this way, but this guy was the most acting this way that I've ever seen anybody on the bus be before, especially on the bus. And so yeah, like I think not, like I am probably amongst the worst people to be gay, honestly, because I chalk it up to to my father's side of the family, um, where we've got a lot of stubborn people who have a serious case of sass mouth. Which is one of the things that I kind of like about Blair White is, at least on her videos, she can be just like so nonchalantly flip about things. Just something like, what is your problem? Like, just so much like that. But yeah, like, I think nothing of, like, potentially embarrassing these guys out in public. Like, I know that even though I live in a relatively, like I said, relatively safe, and LGBT friendly area, I know that there is still a slight chance, like, no matter how slight, there is still a chance that one of these dipshits is going to follow me off the bus and do what they, whatever, to try and kick my ass. I know this is a risk that comes with mouthing off to harassment like this, but I do it anyway. It's like when I ran into that old Motown guitarist when I was living at a welfare hotel outside Gary, Indiana, and he was there too, and I ran into him, and like I said, he was a former Motown guitarist. He had toured with, like the package tours in the '60s, because that's how they did it in the early '60s. Was a lot of times labels would get a bunch of their musical acts that were signed with them, and they would just like tour with like one set of live musicians. So this guy was like, in a single night, he would play like a 10-minute set for the Temptations, a 10-minute set for the Supremes, 10-minute set for the Four Tops, and a 10-minute set for like the Coasters or something. I'm just like throwing names out because my dad grew up. He didn't really grow up with that. My dad grew up with like my dad was born early 40s. He was one of the oldest of the baby boomer generation. So, like, he was one of the oldest boomers. I'm one of the youngest of Gen X, and but yeah, they would tour these, package tours. So, like, my dad grew up in the my dad grew up at the time of like the Andrews Sisters and that kind of music. Like, I think Rudy Vallée still had a career at that time. I know Sinatra was kind of big late 40s, early 50s. So yeah, my dad grew up in the time of like Elvis. My aunt Karen was like a huge Elvis fan, but literally since she was 10, cause that was, let's see, that she turned 10 the year before he went off with the military for a couple of years like he did, and then doing the military. And then what happened was so burly guy, like, can't be even 5.5 feet tall, little squirrely guy, dark hair, is Ray. Not short for Raymond. He gets really pissy about that. It's just Ray. And Ray McElroy. I'm like, yeah, that was my father's name. Was. Yes, sir. He died a couple years ago. Yeah, because that was, the year it was. That was 2003. So, yeah, my dad died 2001. And, no, 2002. 2002. My dad died in 2002. Never mind. So, yeah, this guy's like, was, huh? Yeah, he died in, 2002, sir. Okay. Who do you run his mouth off to? So he's, operating from apparently operating from the assumption that my dad got his ass kicked by the wrong person. And I say, my dad had a brain aneurysm, sir. Okay, yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Who do you run his mouth off to? So now he's just, going from the assumption that, my dad ran his mouth off at somebody, and their retort just like shorted out a fuse in his brain or something. So yeah, like that's kind of like how I chalk it up. It's like, you know, like my dad's side of the family, one of us is gonna run their mouth off to the wrong person one of these days, because like my dad said that like both his parents were kind of the same way. Hello. And yet, as good Catholic parents, they stayed married. But then again, I'm sure, you know, a lot of their love was based off of running their mouths off at each other, you know, at all the wrong times. But yeah, so yeah, like I'm one of the worst people in the world to be a gay guy, because I think nothing of just like running my mouth off. Like I know in the back of my head, there's always a chance, no matter how slight, there's always a chance that one of these dickholes is gonna follow me off the bus or like follow me out of the post office or somebody and want to kick my ass. And I'm like, I know that's a risk that comes with it, but then again, that's a risk with being a McElroy in the first place, because, you know, I mean, oh shit. So there was this guy. There's been a few videos about him. Hell, there's been a few episodes of like, you know, true crime docu-series about him. It was another McElroy, only this guy was based out in Wisconsin, I believe. Kenny McElroy, Keith McElroy, whatever. But yeah, some kind of distant cousins, according to my dad, because I knew about the case where, like, you know, it was a little small town where, like, everybody knew everybody else's business. And this dickhole was just like, yeah, he knew the exact ways around the law to just basically get away with all this shit. And he was really good at intimidating people, like, physically. Like, but yeah, like one day he's shot in broad daylight, surrounded by witnesses, but basically nobody said a thing about it to the authorities, because they're just like, okay, well, the town's problem will just go away if none of us talk. Because it was the early 80s when that happened. But yeah, like I said, like the way I figure it is like, one way or another, like this is just like how being a McElroy works, because yeah, we all, like, for good or for ill, we've all got a mouth on ourselves that is just gonna get away with us one of these days. And yeah, I would rather go out knowing that I asserted myself in the situation than pulling the, I guess, safer move and end up feeling like, you know, at the end of the day, feeling like I somehow, yeah, am like losing my own sense of personhood, because yeah, like I'd just rather, like, everybody else around knows that this other person is causing problems for me. And if they're causing problems for me, they're probably causing problems for other people too. And like I said, I'd rather know that I called that out, even if it gets my ass kicked, than um than being just one more person who just lets it be at that, where this kind of guy gets the impression that he can just treat people like that. So yeah, like one of these days, I imagine I'm going to get my ass kicked, like in a very literal sense, I'm sure. But I'm gonna be okay with that. I'm gonna be okay with that, and that's kind of where, like, I don't know, like, there was some drama with my most recent ex. That would be Isaac, the one I was whining about most of the year. The one who gave me bed bugs and made me feel like less of a person, the last month he was here, like the whole last month and change he was here. But yeah, like, I don't know what kind of bug got up Isaac's ass one day, but he decided that because I'm trans male, I don't fully understand what it's like, like being a gay guy in this society. I'm like, dude, people treat me like a gay guy all the time. Like, I know that. I am 100% conscious of the fact every day that. Yeah, okay, well, in addition to the fact that I'm conscious of the fact every day that there are that in the area of about 50% of the people I encounter, like, I don't know, like checking out at Michael's or Joanne or something, are not going to. Um, they're either going to assume I'm a woman because they don't hear my voice. Apparently, my voice is what tips it off for a lot of people, and I've seen this in action. uh, or they're not going to be completely sure what the hell I am, which I'm okay with. But then again, like, look at Boy George. Like, this is the kind of gay I grew up with. Was like, when I was little, like, and I said this in the Trisha Paytas. I videoed a response to it last night, one that finally took, that was not being interrupted by wind and traffic noises, and actually like saved to my phone in the time I was filming it. So yeah, like, I'm gonna edit out all the nonsense in between there and make my point as concise as possible. I hopefully should get that uploaded on Thanksgiving weekend. But then what happens? So yeah, like, I know that oh, right. So yeah, I said this part in that video was that, like, Trisha Paytas' like whole latest attempt at coming out as somehow LGBT. Like, I feel like I should have an opinion on this, and I actually kind of do. And it's one where, if I were to take this seriously, like, she would be putting it like in the least sophisticated manner possible. Like, when I was about 5, I was able to articulate my gender identity consistently from about the age of 4 or 5, because that's as far back as I can remember. I have some hazy memories of being 3. Probably the one that's closest to clear is the last time my father and his sister Judy spoke to each other, which, or at least I'm assuming it was one of the last, because we never saw her after my grandmother on that side died. But so yeah, like, when I was about 4 or 5, I was able to consistently articulate my gender identity, though not necessarily in the most sophisticated manner. It was in, a manner typical of a 5-year-old, which was, or at least that made sense for a 5-year-old. And that was if somebody asked me the kind of person I wanted to be when I grew up, I would have pointed to, like, Freddie Mercury or Elton John, or as I gradually started getting older, like Boy George, Mark Bolan from T-Rex. Yeah, I would point at men. I would point at men who were at least somewhat effeminate, or at least during a part of their career were seen as such. I'm speaking of Freddie Mercury, of course. Men who were somewhat effeminate, men who were, to some extent, who were in one way or another gay, bi, queer, etc. And this was consistent. Like, the one time I was about, like, 9, and I would point to Annie Lennox and say I wanted to be like Annie Lennox when I grew up, but that was only because when I was about 8 and 9 years old, I honestly thought Annie Lennox was a drag queen, I really did. I thought Annie Lennox was a drag queen for a couple of years there, and then I learned she was indeed a woman, and I felt betrayed, and I didn't want to be like Annie Lennox anymore. And I went like until I was about, oh gosh, I was generally unable to listen to Annie Lennox music until I was from, yeah, about like just before I was 10 was when I found out that she was indeed a woman, like a cisgender female woman, and she was pregnant for, oh wait, no, I would I think I was 11 when the Diva album came out. That was like her first solo one. And she was pregnant during the filming of the Little Bird video, and that's when I found out that, oh yeah, I guess she is a woman, like, and not a drag queen. Because, my mother was a former Frank Zappa groupie, and as a former Frank Zappa groupie, she was also into Alice Cooper, so I knew that there would be men, a lot of times rock stars, who would use a woman's sounding name, and like some of them would be straight up drag queens, like Divine or something. And so yeah, like I honestly thought Annie Lennox was a drag queen until she was pregnant, right? So I really did. Like that was like the one year my mother was kind of relieved about the, because my mother went off on it like more than more than people probably imagine my dad did. There's a lot of reasons that my dad and I've been on my own since I was 17, and there's a lot of reasons about that. But um but yeah, it's like I think on some level he kind of knew and had made peace with the fact that like I was his boy, but only in the most roundabout fashion. And I think on some level it's one of those things where like he kind of knew and understood it in this way. Like my dad had this obsession for a couple of years, like when I was like 14 and 15, where he insisted I should enlist in the draft, and my stepmother would just like call this nonsense, and but yeah, and like I said, by that time, I had just clearly had these little gender incongruent sort of happenings in my life. But yeah, like I was able to articulate as young as like 5 is when I have the first really clear memory of this, the kind of person I wanted to be when I grew up, and it was always men, or at least people I assumed to be effeminate men. Case in point, Annie Lennox, who I genuinely thought was a drag queen for quite some time. And yeah, and that was just so yeah, like if I was going to take Trisha Paytas' latest, like coming out as LGBT sort of stunt at all seriously, if I was going to take this in good faith in any meaningful way, like at best she would be she is at the best, we can assume that she is less articulate about this than a 5-year-old often is when they are, 5 years old and actually trans, because like when you're that young, you can like I said, it's not going to be the sophisticated language an adult would use, but it will be in a way that is articulate and also appropriate to a typical 5-year-old's view of the world and how they see things. It's like I said, whereas Paytas, instead of saying that, oh, well, like when I was 5, like she says, oh, well, when I was like, 5, 6, 12 years old, I was a bit of a tomboy and, always like to rough and tumble, and I don't wear makeup all the time. And I'm like, well, if that's, as if the presence or absence of makeup on a daily basis is enough to like say somebody's gender identity. Like it when she's saying shit like that, it's like saying at least half the lesbians I know, shit, at least half the straight women I know must be trans male because they don't wear makeup every day. I'm like, this is just such superficial shit that I will need some harder evidence than Gigi Gorgeous assisting Trisha in doubling down on this. Because as far as I'm concerned, yeah, Gigi Gorgeous did say that video, but as far as I'm concerned, like, Trisha Paytas has cited one of her primary influences as a performer, as an entertainer, as a YouTuber. One of her primary influences is Andy Kaufman. And unfortunately, it's true, but when you cite Kaufman as a major influence on your work as a performer, part of what comes with that is the fact that Andy Kaufman spent a significant portion of his career making people, like, going out of his way to make people doubt the reality he offered them. Like, if he told you, like, because it's like, so as far as I'm concerned, like, Gigi Gorgeous is like when Bob Zmuda would put on, the Tony Clifton wig and sunglasses and fat suit, so that, while Andy Kaufman was, say, on The Tonight Show, then suddenly Tony Clifton is in the audience, and rather than being obviously Andy Kaufman in a wig and sunglasses and fat suit, which, it often very obviously was Andy Kaufman in a wig and a fat suit, and then, like, Kaufman would come on the same show 2 weeks later and would be like, oh no, Tony Clifton is a completely different person, he's my manager. But no, like, it was almost always Andy Kaufman in a wig and aviator sunglasses and a fat suit, like, pitching down, pitching down to this, like, gravelly, obnoxious voice. But, like, when he wanted to create the illusion, like, when he wanted to make you doubt that this was obviously himself in a wig and aviators and a fat suit, he would get his friend Bob Zmuda to put on the Tony Clifton wig and aviators and fat suit, and, just like, so while, like, Kaufman is on The Tonight Show talking about whatever, here comes Bob Zmuda instead as Tony Clifton to, try and make the audience doubt their own, doubt their own, reality of, like, 2 weeks prior. It was clearly, obviously, Andy Kaufman in a wig and aviators and a fat suit. But now here's, somebody who is obviously not Andy Kaufman in a wig and aviators and fat suit. Only, like, if you're in the know, it's clearly Bob Zmuda in a wig and aviators and fat suit. So, yeah, like, as far as I'm concerned, Gigi Gorgeous' video is just, is Bob Zmuda as Tony Clifton in this situation. Like, Trisha Paytas is saying one thing and insisting that she's for real, and she's also got a friend that she's roped into, like, bolstering this illusion. This is just another case of Bob Zmuda in, the Tony Clifton wig and fat suit, trying to convince people that, well, Andy Kaufman is trying to make his case that Tony Clifton is not himself, but, a real man named Tony Clifton, and not a character he made up to basically gaslight his audience in the name of entertainment. And as far as I'm concerned, that's kind of what's going on with Trisha Paytas, because, and it's because, like, in the videos that she did with Amelia Fart, she literally admitted that one of her primary influences as a performer is Andy Kaufman. So, like, and like I said, like, when you cite Andy Kaufman as a major influence, this is one of the tough realities that you get, is people are going to have every right from that point forward to doubt everything you've ever said is true about yourself or anything. Like, you could tell them that the sky is blue and the grass is green, but as far as they're concerned, you're just telling us enough truth that we'll believe that is not Bob Zamuda in the wig and a fat suit while you're on the Tonight Show, right? So yeah, like Gigi Gorgeous can make whatever videos she wants. It doesn't, it doesn't prove anything. Like, it doesn't prove anything. And that's where I'm at with the Trisha Paytas thing. It's like, I do not legitimately believe that she is in any way meaningfully trans, but at the same time, much like Andy Kaufman, wherein he would challenge feminists to wrestle him in the wrestling ring, though, as a character also named Andy Kaufman, who, legitimately believed this, but at the same time, Kaufman, put on that caricature, version of, like the prototype MGTOW sort of character. He put on that kind of character and, named him Andy Kaufman because he wanted to hold up, a bit of a mirror to some of the absurdities being said here, and he was using this character to do that. And I go into a bit more detail about it in the video I shot last night while I was putting on my makeup. So, over the weekend, I'm gonna splice that down and put it all together and call it a video and post it online. And it is so fucking late right now, so I'm gonna queue up a bunch of videos to go on in the background while I'm trying to get some sleep. I'm going to take off my makeup and all of that and get into bed, hopefully with cats. Alright, so as per all, oh, you know what? I'll catch up on some comments. Wait. Shit. God damn it. Sorry, I hit a weird button on my seriously, phone? Fuck. Seriously? Hello? I'm sorry, I hit the weird button on my phone. Okay, Brianna Lynn says that's pretty. I'm assuming the lace that I'm making, Fat Jesus, Russell is back. Oh, looks like we have all of one person left in the, viewing. Recognize your voice, watcher 2. I'm assuming Rose of Dawn, with that dude. Are we talking about Yaniv? Oh, and I'm in the same way. I'll call anyone the fuck out. Oh, wait. And the sass runs deep with me, too. It happens so fast. Oh, wait. Was this... I'm not getting timestamps on this. Is there a way to check timestamps? Oh, no, of course not. Because that might make this all a little bit easily. Oh, yep. I know exactly what kind of bug went up Isaac's ass. Oh, God. Bed bugs. Duh. Oh, gosh. Yeah. Isaac is... I almost want to be forgiving and blame a lot of his problems on being ex-Mormon, but I've known other ex-Mormons that are not quite as broken, but yeah, I need to call it a night, because it has been a few hours, and I've done a whole lot of not much, and, alright, as I say, bats and kisses, and you should all take care of yourselves and wear your sunscreen, and good night. And we hit the stop button.